dangerous. Our correspondent, Sherwin Price-Peace.
Several conditions are needed for a hurricane to form. Among these is an ocean temperature of about 27 Celsius. Scientists say recent temperatures in the Gulf of Mexico are about 2 degrees higher than average, and this is helping storms gather more and more strength. The study by the World Weather Attribution Group says this was evident 2 weeks ago when Storm Helene killed more than 200 people in the US. The researchers estimate that winds were more than 20 kilometers an hour stronger than they would have been without climate change, and rainfall was about 10% heavier.
Taking another look at the top story at 3 o'clock, Eskom has warned that its financial sustainability hangs in the balance as the power utility anticipates a 1 billion rand loss in the current financial year. For SAFM News, Kemudupi Makhalemeli.
And coming up in your sports, the Sao Proteas women beat Scotland by 80 runs in the T20 Women's World Cup. Safa partners with Southern Sun, and Medvedev defeats Tsitsipas in straight sets at Shanghai Open. More details at 3:30.
My name's Michael Fontaine. I'm 16. I have difficulty paying attention in class, so I fell behind. That's why my parents moved me to UCT Online High School. I can't thank them enough. Their flexible learning means I can take classes when it suits me, so I get ahead and stay ahead. Visit uctonlinehighschool.com to learn more. Applications close 29 November 2024.
After registering 4 points in their first 2 matches, the Mambas of Mars target a huge win to keep their top status in Group I. But Stangsem Negati want out of the bottom position. They believe not even the Mozambican heat will stop them from getting their first win. This is the Total Energies AFCON 2025 qualifier. Experience the meeting between neighbors. Mozambique versus Eswatini on Friday 11 October at 3 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available everywhere for everyone. Always on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
I haven't done this in a long time, but I'm looking at a tweet from Jack Pagati saying, I want to hear Ashraf reintroduce himself for the second time in 1 year. John did a great job, though. The show is like a relay. Today, Ashraf takes the baton. Welcome back, Ashraf. So there you are, Jack. That's me. And yes, I am Ashraf Garda. And this is the National Pulse. And like it or not, I have to have my fingers on the National Pulse. I take it you've had your fingers on the pulse for the last 3 weeks, because that's how long it's been since I've gone. I think it was the 16th of September that I left for Montreal firstly, which means my last show was the Friday before that. It does seem like a long time, but it is a long time, and therefore it does seem for me as if, this new kid in a classroom for the first time, and you have a whole lot of course the people I'm familiar with, I know that, but the reality, when you just come in, you're suddenly looking at all things brand new. But I would think that very, very quickly things move on to a position of familiarity. And part of that familiarity is yourself. So I'm certainly looking forward to engaging you as we talk about some of the big issues that matter, right? And let me just tell you, therefore, where I've been. So I've been to 3 cities, and I'll talk about the other 2 later on in the week. Toronto and London. Not now. The main reason I was abroad, I went to Montreal for the One Young World Summit. It's a getting together of about 2,000 young activists from around the world, some of the brightest minds in the world, putting together some of the brightest projects in their home countries, and then because of what they do, they get identified as part of this global movement called One Young World. Started by Kate Robertson. By the way, she's South African born, but has been living in London ever since I think I remember. And David Jones, the two of them. Kate is the founder and the CEO. Right? So 2,000 young achievers from around the world. I was there because I moderated 2 sessions, and I also was involved in a mentorship session. The sessions I moderated, Dr. David Suzuki, who's a big name in Canada. In fact, his He's a renowned champion of a climate activist champion around the issues of the impact of climate change. And what a privilege for me to moderate a session with him. Really, really fascinating. The second one I did was called Building BRICS. It looked at the fact that, the 5 countries that were part of the original BRICS, right, that I remember hosted the BRICS Summit in South Africa, the opening day last year. So we took the 5 countries, one representative from each one of the 5, and young people, and they talked about how to build the BRICS nations moving forward. And then as far as the mentorship goes, well, I had the privilege of mentorship program, that is, with 8 people from Africa. And I can tell you now, these 8 young Africans were brighter than me. So this wasn't a case of me mentoring them. I'm like talking to them as I talk. I'm like, holy man, these are solid ideas there that I could use. The other thing that I need to mention, there was a huge emphasis on what is called First Nation people. And it's so topical to South Africa, but First Nation in regards to, for example, Canada, you think about what is called the Mohawks, or others talk about Native Americans. These are the original inhabitants of that space, and just about every session started like that. What are the First Nations? Quickly, I'll tell you that who was there from South Africa. Professor Tuli Madonsela was there, Tendai the Beast Mtawarira was there, and Shudufatso Wazira was there, and I tell you what, all put in really impressive performances in terms of what they spoke and when they were on the panels as well. Then from ABSA, you had Stephen Zwane as well as KG, and a whole group of people from ABSA, the bank, there, and they presented as well around their forms of innovation in the banking space. And then others, Bob Geldof was there. Everybody knows him. I don't like Mondays. Well, yeah, he certainly is. He was there. Queen Rania from Jordan, Cher as you may know, she was there. Jane Goodwin, and then Maria Ressy, who is a Nobel Peace Prize laureate. And then Maria Juliana Ruiz, who was the former First Lady of Colombia. And there were a couple others as well. Well, I'll tell you what, let me leave it at that because we need to get to the pressing issues now. But in the next few days, I certainly want to share my insights of some of the cities that I saw and experienced, not for the first time, some of them, yeah, but a lot to learn from what they get right and what we get right. I will give you one thing that's really important. I spoke to a relative of mine in London, and she made the point, because she's working in London, she made the point that her team in London is less equipped than a team in South Africa. That means the South African team in the financial services space were more switched on in terms of service delivery than the team in London. I need to mention that really we must not sell ourselves short. There's a lot we can learn and a lot we must learn from other parts of the world. But let's ensure that we switch on our minds, be champion thinkers, and we think like champions in all that we do, because we really are a highly regarded people when we work abroad. Can we use the same ethic at home and abroad to be this global nation or this champion nation that I talk about? Something to reflect on as we get to some of the big issues of the day. And there's no question what the big issue is of the day. We have a new mayor in the city of Tshwane right after this.
X at SFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
Right, so what a day to come back into work. First day, and we have now a new mayor in the city of Tshwane. We see Action South Africa's Dr. Nasipi Moya being elected as the new mayor. No surprise if you follow the story in terms of where the DA fitted with Cilliers Brink effectively being out of favour, as we know that. And significantly, the African National Congress, together with other parties, but significantly with Action SA, coming together, whatever you may want to call it, a collaboration of sorts, to be able to come together to deliver a new mayor. So with me, we have the President of Action SA, former Mayor of Joburg, and I'm saying that very, very intentionally, Herman Mashaba. Herman, I appreciate your time. You're live on the National Pulse.
Good afternoon, Ashraf, and good afternoon to SFM listeners.
Thank you. So, just your quick response that, in fact, a member of your party is now the mayor of the city of Tshwane. What's your immediate response around that?
Well, Ashraf, and in particular with the residents of Tshwane, I think this is an emotional date for us as SNSA, as a political party. And why it is emotional is because this was not really necessary if all political parties in this country respected the will of the voters, that we must work together. But unfortunately, we found ourselves in a very abusive relationship which ultimately forced us to really take a different turn because we just could not really take the abuse and the arrogance any longer, and that put us into the situation. As you can imagine, we're almost 24 months to very important elections in 2026. This was not the right time, but at the end of the day, it has happened, and it is time for Dr. Moya and her team, which will announce within the next 48 hours, so that by Monday they can hit the ground running, ensure that residents of the city of Tshwane, all residents, receive services as required by the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa.
Okay, now it's not the first time this issue has been raised, but it's important that we do raise it. You talk about an abusive relationship. I take it you're talking about an abusive relationship with the DA. Yet in the past, you have pronounced, maybe not using the same words, that certainly any relationship with the ANC would be abusive. I mean, that's a dramatic change in your thinking.
Well, I think, Ashraf, the world changes. I'm sure in someone of your age, you will know life keeps changing. And for all of us, God has given us this little brain to use to navigate. And you adapt, because if you don't adapt, then you die. When obviously you act in good faith today, that does not really mean that tomorrow will be what you expect it to be. So life changes, and I think it's up to us as human beings to adapt. And this has actually demonstrated our agility as a political party to be able to adapt to ensure that we don't leave residents of city of Tshwane without government.
Well, maybe this is the last time we'll ask you about this issue. What was so abusive about your relationship with the DA and vice versa?
Well, the thing is, when you govern with the DA governs as if they have a two-thirds majority. They don't really consult, and they insult, and as I say, they take decisions as if they've got a two-thirds majority. Their consultation process, I'm a living example of that when I was the mayor of the city of Johannesburg, which led to my departure. When obviously they think as if I was the mayor with outright majority. For us as Section SA, and me in particular, when you run government, it does not mean when you have majority, you can abuse your powers. Whether you have majority or not, when you serve society, serve everyone. Whether people voted for you or not, you have a constitutional responsibility to serve them. But unfortunately, that's not the position of the DA, and I've really tried it when I was with them. We've tried them independently as Action SA, and we are now convinced that no one is going to change the DA. They can only get worse from here.
Okay, let's talk about your candidate, who's now the mayor of the city of Tshwane, right? Obviously, she could only become the mayor because of the support, not just of Action SA, but certainly of the African National Congress, right? Anyway, she was put up as the mayor, and now she is the mayor. Tell us about her. What makes her such a suitable candidate to lead one of the most significant municipalities in our country?
Well, as you're aware, Dr. Moyo, obviously, academically, she's got a doctorate in political science and so forth. It's someone who the last 18 months has served as the deputy mayor under Action SA, working with Elia Brink. She's worked for this municipality 4 years in the past, worked in the office of past executive mayor. She's a committed South African, hard-working woman that I think for us as Action SA, when we presented her to the ANC and other parties, without any doubt, we could not really find anyone who could obviously really match her credentials.
Okay. I've seen the press release, and it talks about no more politics. It's all about service delivery. Help us understand. I mean, I have a sense what that means, but I'd like to hear it from you.
Well, service delivery, it's about having the mayor who's going to be spending a minimum of 80% out there in the streets of Ga-Rankuwa, in the streets of Littleton, in the streets of Waterkloof, ensuring that residents get the services, that potholes and roads are adequately covered. We make sure that people of Hammanskraal get clean water. That's an issue for us as Section SA we've been working on even before we came into government. She needs to go and assure people of Hammanskraal to make sure that one of these days they must get clean water.
How
we cannot have a situation where people of Mamelodi, Atteridgeville, they live in squalor where refuge is not collected. So we need to ensure that all the residents are treated equally by government of the day.
How will you measure her performance? Meaning that, when we talk about no more politics, her appointment is in fact political, and she still has to be measured initially, not just by the residents, but ultimately by those that vote for in council, which is the political parties.
Well, Ashraf, today's events were just optics, so if I may call it what it is. The important job for her actually begins now in ensuring that we provide services. By providing services, you will see in the coming days, once she announces an executive team, to actually take the residents of Tshwane into confidence about the actual state of the finances of the city, the backlogs and everything else, and ensure that when we measure her on what is possible, not what Ashraf thinks it's possible. I think it's important for the mayor to always deal with civil society in total good faith. When you can do something, you must go and do it. And if you can't do it, be honest with the residents that, unfortunately, give me time, it is not possible for us to really be able to really deliver this street right now.
Okay.
Give us another 6 months or whatever.
All right,
But
give me a quick...
There are things that can be done immediately.
Okay, quick soundbite answer. How are you going to ensure that this coalition holds, keeping in mind that it's been rather fractious?
Well, I think like any other coalition government anywhere in the world, this coalition can only survive if the executive mayor, as the leader of government, actually operates with humility, with respect, and dedication.
Okay. And that's where we will leave it. Thank you, Herman Mashaba.
The XL, XLT and Wild Track from only 481,900 for a Ranger XL single cab 4x2 is the extra large Ranger offer from only 481,900. Visit your nearest participating Ford dealer. Optional service plan included. While stocks last. TNCs apply. Congo Brazzaville wants to ensure that AFCON bronze medalist South Africa gets nothing during their visit to Brazzaville. However, Southern Africans Bafana Bafana want to represent the region well by collecting maximum points. This is the Total Energies AFCON 2025 qualifier. Experience the exciting journey to Morocco, Congo Brazzaville versus South Africa on Tuesday, 15 October at 6 p.m. Live on SABC3 and SABC radio stations. Also available everywhere for everyone. Always on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Right, there you are. What for you moves the National Pulse? What are the big issues that impacts your life that you yourself have your fingers on the pulse, not just myself? So you can tell me and you can call in and let me know. 086 000 2032. You can WhatsApp, text or voice notes 0614 104 107. And I haven't done this in a long time. But how about this? What about wherever you are? Tweet your pictures, post it on Facebook as well, of wherever you are with your dial locked onto SAFM. Listening 105.1 in Joburg, but as you know, it's a nationwide channel, so you can listen to us wherever you are around the country and around the world. By the way, in terms of my intro, let me just remind you as well that in terms of that point that Jack made about passing the baton, of course, we had John Carricker, we had Oliver Dixon. Both of them, I understand, did a splendid job, as I would expect, because we are part of a team and we certainly want to build a champion winning team in all things that we do. And one of the things that are important, I think, in that context is to be able to build others into doing the same thing, so that there's a continuity of, hopefully, excellence, I would like to think, no matter who takes over. We'll be connecting, getting an update on what's the goings on regarding the election in Mozambique in a moment. Let's get a voice note.
Good day, SAFM. Amula from Boxback. People who blame Mashaba Action SA, I suspect, are DA followers. But they fail to understand that DA started the whole controversy by betraying Moonshot without bye-bye, running to put the same ANC into lost power again. Today, when Mashaba ran to ANC, they crowd foul. Nothing wrong with Mashaba. DA dump him for their own benefits. Leave Mashaba alone. Action SA will work with ANC somewhere, and DA also work with ANC somewhere. ANC too clever to work with all enemies. As long as they hold on power by backdoor, they don't care, they don't worry. Bye-bye.
Okay, there you are. I wonder whether others would agree with that. But I mean, it's interesting the point that Herman Mashaba made in my conversation with him. And you know, the podcast will be up as well, ASAP, right? In a sense that it's an abusive relationship with the DA and therefore they've fallen apart. And as far as the ANC is concerned, I mean, he's pronounced often enough that he will not ever work with the ANC. They're a corrupt party. But as he made the point that even I'm always Ashraf, come on. Things can change. So things have changed. The question is, how long will that position hold with regard to the ANC? Or they've shifted from the DA to the ANC now. Why can't they shift back to the DA sometime down the future? I'm just saying, you know, anything is possible. South Africa is alive with possibilities, isn't it? Solly in Tshwane. Hi, Solly.
Good afternoon, Esran. How are you?
Yeah, good talking to you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just thinking Mr. Mashaba is dreaming. You know, I think come 2026, because I'm one of those people who organize my family, 40 members of my family to vote for Action SA, because he promised us that he's not going to work with the African National Congress. Now he has changed. Now he's saying you change, you adjust, you adapt. He's dreaming. Come 2026, we are going to show him. It's the end of Action SA. Thank you very much, Asra.
Okay, there we are. The end of Action SA. Well, you see, here's an interesting thought on that one. When the election took place, the Action SA did not perform well. And for many people, it's like, hold it, you guys have played the wrong card here, Action SA. In fact, you're on the way out. Now they've strategically negotiated themselves into a position where their party member is the mayor of one of the most significant, cities in the country. So would that be the end of that? Or is that just really good negotiating, as has been shown before, where we saw even with the city of Joburg with Al Jamal? You don't have to actually be the biggest party. It's, can you make an impact? And maybe that's what they're focusing on. Let's see. Right, let's get another thought. We get to the Northwest region. Motlele Pule, good chatting to you. You're connected to National Pulse. Hi.
Hi.
Go ahead. Hi, good talking to you.
Listen, man, I just... of the DA. The DA said they will never work with the ANC. Now they are in government of national unity with ANC, and there's nothing wrong with it. The DA wanted to work with the ANC in Tshwane. That is why they betrayed Action SA and whatever other partners of theirs. But now, because the Action SA did the same thing that they wanted to do and failed in doing, they are crying foul. The DA needs to know that no one won the elections in Tshwane, and anything can happen. And it's not that they are better leaders than anybody else. That has been proven by their inability to work with other political organizations, because wherever they are having coalitions, their coalition is failing. There are so many municipalities or metros that I can make an example of where the DA coalitions have collapsed because they think that they are the boss of everybody. Actually, they need...
Yeah. Oh, I think we've just lost you. But I hear what you're saying. But I think it's not just the DA, quite honestly. One can put that same issue to most of the other parties. And I'll say this much. There's no question at this point in time that political parties, and we've said this in the run-up to the election, political parties, that's why I always said they should have two votes for us. One is the party of our choice, and the second vote is the party we want them to go into a coalition with if they're required to do that. That clearly did not happen, as you know, with all the parties. So they're yesterday's enemy, today's big chummy. It's a strange, strange world we live in, right?
Good afternoon, Ashraf, and welcome back. I can assure you and the South Africans that the marriage of ANC, EFF, and Action SA is not about service delivery in the capital city. This is about the political fight back. They are using our votes to fight the political battle. This is not about the interest of the resident of Tshwane. So it is Nyolweni Mafefe Limpopo.
Okay, that's what you say. It's all about a political agenda. Here's another interesting one.
Hi, Ashraf. Nicholas in Cape Town. Can you please assist us as e-hailing drivers. Uber is abusing us emotionally. Their commission of 45% that they are taking from what we are making is totally ridiculous. So if it was there by any chance that you could get the president by himself, because we cannot trust these ministers, only if Mr. Mkhunu and Mr. Masimula, they were ministers of transport, yes, we could have get help easily. But the other ministers we cannot trust. It's either we get the president so that we can shoot the questions straight to him, whether who gave Uber the license to operate in this country. What was the deal between the two parties, South Africa and Uber? Because Uber is abusing us, really.
Well, I tell you what, I mean, I hear what you're saying. I certainly use Uber. That means I'm one of your customers, right? And I, of course, don't know the percentages, but maybe here's the thing. When you say the president, I would think the first prize is not the president of the country, but I'm just going to say the president of Uber. That means whoever's in charge of Uber. Maybe that's the point. I'm looking at Keys and Temba to say, come on, maybe we need to find out exactly how the percentages work so we fully understand the system. Whether they will bend the rules and change to accommodate you, well, that's part of the negotiation that takes place, I would think, isn't it? Let's get the news headlines. Here's Madupi.
Thank you very much, Ashraf. Welcome back. In your headlines, Asawa, the Electoral Court has dismissed former MK Party leader Jabulani Khumalo's application for leave to appeal. Eskom has warned that its financial sustainability hangs in the balance as the power utility anticipates a 1 billion rand loss in the current financial year. And the aviation giant Boeing has withdrawn its 30% pay rise offer to striking staff in the US. A full news update coming up 4 o'clock.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Plenty of action around Durban today. Let's take you straight there for a vehicle fire on the N2 northbound between Spaghetti Junction and Umgena Road. So the N2 north heavily backed up. The N2 south getting caught with onlookers having a big look at what's going on. So very heavy from Umgena Road to Spaghetti Junction. So both ways in towards the Westwood Mall territory. Super heavy, of course, that vehicle fire in amongst all the roadworks as well. Also a crash on the M4. This is the Ruth First Highway northbound the Virginia Airport. So if you're leaving the Durban area on your way to Umhlanga, that's quite heavy up through Durban north towards that scene, and leaving Umhlanga, there's some delays coming into that crash scene as well. Also the M7 from Bel Air and Wakesley up the hill towards the Belleville Road exit of Queensborough. That's quite a heavy backlog. If you're on your way to sort of Queensborough or Pinetown, that M7's a serious queue. You might want to take an alternative route away from that. Joburg side, the roadworks on the R21 northbound today before the Benoni exit. Traffic's quite heavily backed up with the queue pushing back through the Pomona Road exit at this stage. And if you're coming out of Cape Town, Mill Street out towards the M3 through the Gardens, that's unusually heavy, and Nelson Mandela Boulevard queuing up from Searle Street out through Hospital Bend and into a very busy and congested M3 South, which is already under pressure to Rhodes Drive. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Kapele.
And to me, I haven't done this in a long time.
Welcome back, Ashraf.
Are you still the Minister of Sport?
I am.
Because, this country, things change very quickly. I have to be very clear about it. Well, I'm glad that you are. And what have you got lined up? You've got cricket lined up.
It's cricket, and we're looking at the ICC Women's T20 World Cup, where the Proteas women beat Scotland by 80 runs. Earlier on, South Africa won the toss, and they chose to bat first. They set a T20 World Cup record with the highest score of this year's tournament so far, and 166 for 5 in the 20 overs. Tasman Brits and Marizan Cup top scored with 43 of 35 and 43 of 24 balls respectively. In reply, Scotland were bowled out for 86 with Nonkululeko Mlaba taking 3 wickets for 12. So with this result, it sees South Africa going to the top of the group. But remember, England, West Indies, and Bangladesh, they are yet to play their third match. However, South Africa has won 2 and lost 1 so long. Then in football, the South African Football Association has announced announced a partnership with Southern Sun. As part of the partnership, Southern Sun will provide accommodation, conferencing, and hospitality services for various SAFA-related activities, including Bafana Bafana's participation in major tournaments like the Africa Cup of Nations qualifiers and the FIFA World Cup campaigns. And they say that in addition, Southern Sun will play a key role in supporting the women's national team, Banyana Banyana, as they continue to make history on the global stage. Elsewhere, former Liverpool manager Jurgen Klopp has been appointed as the head of football operations at Red Bull, which owns Leipzig, Salzburg, and New York clubs. The 57-year-old's new job with the Austrian energy drinks giant does not involve hands-on coaching. However, he's going to focus on supporting individual sporting directors alongside global scouting and the development of coaches. In the meantime, Liverpool goalkeeper Alisson is expected to be out until at least mid-November with a hamstring injury. The Brazil international was hurt in the 1-0 win over Crystal Palace on Saturday and was replaced after 79 minutes. Then moving on to rugby, Springbok women WXV2 final match against Italy at Athlone Stadium in Cape Town on Saturday is all about finishing the season well with their tails up. And according to Heather Jacobs, who's one of the loose forwards in the squad, the growth has been measurable. And for the Bok women, nothing would be more satisfying than closing out a solid season with a victory over Italy in their final test of the year. The Springbok women have beaten Japan and then lost to Australia, both with 7-point margins in their 2 WXV appearances so far, and Jacob says that they are determined to finish strong.
We're definitely confident going to this game. We've been hitting all the objectives going forward. So this game we have objectives specific for Italy. So working hard this week to be able to pull it off on the weekend.
In tennis, Daniil Medvedev defeated Stefanos Tsitsipas in straight sets today to reach the quarterfinals of the Shanghai Open. The 5th seed won the match 7-6, 6-3 to improve to a 10-4 against the Greek, who had a major meltdown and refused to play after a time violation. Medvedev next faces Yannick Sinner in a blockbuster quarterfinal. On that note, it's a wrap from my side. I'll have more in the next hour.
So regarding the women's cricket team, I mean, they beat the Irish today. I got that, the luck of the Irish, but I mean, they must be Scottish rather.
Yep.
They must be one of the favourites to win this tournament, right?
They are the favourites to win. It's just, I think England is a thorn on our side. Unfortunately, we lost to them, but they're hoping that they'll do well. I mean, in that first match, they claimed a 10-wicket win, which will definitely work to our advantage, especially when it comes to the run rate. So we're hoping that South Africa does well.
Okay, well, please, I mean, I must tell you this. I travelled, as you know.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I meet the one guy at the Tower of London, and he finds out I'm South African, and the first thing he said is like, "You're from South Africa?" He says, "My hero of my lifetime." And I'm expecting him to say Nelson Mandela, and he said, A.B. de Villiers. Ooh. He said, "What a player." Nice. I just love A.B. de Villiers. But then he said the most important one. Why your country doesn't win the World Cup.
For me, I thought he was going to say Siya Kolisi.
No, clearly he's a cricket fan, So, A.B. de Villiers. But he's right about his prowess. Great, one of the great cricketers of all time.
Well, hopefully South Africa does well at the T20 Women's World Cup.
More sport in an hour.
For 18 years, Khumbuleka has been fostering healing through forgiveness and reconciliation.
Are you asking me that? Yes. I grew up without a mom.
So what happened to your family?
What family? You are my family. What happened to you?
Witness as families forgive one another and reunite after a long time. Catch the new season of Khumbuleka on SABC1 every Wednesday at 9 p.m.
Great things can happen when you play Lotto for a life-changing 70 million rand estimated jackpot this Wednesday. That's right. Play Lotto for an estimated 70 million rand jackpot today, and luck could be on your side. Buy your tickets now in store on nationallottery.co.za, the mobile app, cell phone banking, or simply dial *120*7529# for USSD. Panda, Pusha, play. Players must be 18 years old or play responsibly. E2 is the proud operator of the National Lottery.
Amatax ladies are looking for high-level mechanisms to stop the dominance of Masandawana ladies, while the queens of Klorkop want to emphasize that they are Banyana Ba style and will want to win in style. This is the Hollywood Bet Super League. Witness the Mzansi Queens of the beautiful game. University of Pretoria Ladies FC versus Mamelodi Sundowns Ladies FC on Saturday, 12 October at 3 p.m. live on SABC 1 and SABC radio stations. Also available everywhere for everyone, always on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Well, one of the things that I often talk about is that you effectively, you have your fingers on the pulse and you therefore play a huge role in driving what is the national pulse of the nation. Therefore, we need you to respond. So glad that we've had a caller from Johannesburg. The news is not good, but I'm glad that the caller has called in, which is this. There's a tree burning on Oxford Road, which is Rosebank, right? Which is just after the Nelson Mandela Foundation. This will probably cause issues as the fire grows, so just keep an eye on that one there. So if it's Oxford Road, of course, the Mandela Foundation would not be on Oxford. That's on the other side, close to Rosebank, on the other side, just in Houghton. But close by, so people in that city will know exactly what we're talking about. Just exercise caution, but very importantly, listen to the show here, because we'll give you updates on that as well. So what to avoid, certainly when it comes to our traffic updates, you'll get them too. I'll pick out some of the other comments. There are many people wanting to talk on many of the issues. I'm particularly interested, not so much on the merits of the new mayor, right? And hopefully we'll have a chat with her soon, right? But very importantly, in terms of understanding what happens now with regard to this, can I call it fragile coalition of sorts, from coalition on the one hand to government of national unity on the other? Can you see how fragile it is? Because I understand that the DA at one stage, I've been away, they made the point that, well, if that's the case, they're not going to do any business with the ANC. So where does that leave all these different partnerships that have taken place? All rather, if not confusing, I think it's puzzling. But is that par for the course? We'll find out. Let's get into another important issue. I just want to see if we can get an update. We did tell you we'll chat about the Mozambican election. We've had a problem with a connection of sorts, so we'll get to that just now. There are other comments from you, which is great. Ashraf, the politicians must understand that the people who vote for them are not politicians but ordinary citizens. Herman should have refused to work with the ANC in order to retain the party's integrity. Well, many may say that, but that could apply to everybody else too, isn't it? Hi, Ashraf. Now the ANC is showing its true colours. It's time for the DA to move out of the so-called GNU and leave Ramaphosa to be ousted by the MK and the EFF, because now the ANC is behaving like a big brother. Question is, why you're using the word "why" a couple of times, okay? All right, there's that, and there's another one. Ashraf, is Dr. Moya another Gwamanda experiment decoy? The ANC is going to pull strings from a distance. How long will it last? Well, I mean, would it be just the ANC that pulls strings? I think we can use an example, maybe to a degree, the example of how the Joburg mayorship worked. And I'm not talking about when Herman Mashaba was there, but I'm talking about when they had, a party with one or two seats. I'm talking about Al Jamaa put into a position where they ran the city. But as you know, they don't also, just to be fair to them, they don't just make their own decisions. There's a caucus that determines what actually happens, and they all vote on it. So they largely vote on party political arranged lines. And I think the same is going to apply this time around. So don't for 1 minute think. It would be naive to think if the Action SA is its mayor, who actually has made the point that she's not the mayor of Action SA, don't for 1 minute think that it will only be they will vote alongside Action SA policies. It doesn't just work like that. Let's get on to another issue. The Minister of Police, that's Senzo Mkhunu, is currently conducting operations in Germiston. That's, on the east rand of Johannesburg, right? This follows the successful signing of a cooperation agreement between the South African Police Service and the city of Ekurhuleni. Now, the operations aim to strengthen law enforcement efforts and enhance safety in the area. So, what's happened today? Let's find out with Kamogelo Mogotsi, who's the Ministry of Police spokesperson on the raids itself, right? Kamogelo, appreciate your time. You're connected to the National Pulse.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Good afternoon to you and to the listeners.
Right, so fill us in. What's happened? I mean, there's these. So, is it a fact-finding sort, or is it actual raids that have taken place today?
As you mentioned in your intro, yesterday we signed the cooperation agreement, and that is in essence going to mean the pooling of resources between the three spheres of government. And that's then also going to entail daily continued operations, not just for today. So as we speak right now, there are operations underway in Germiston CBD, in Benoni, and Kempton Park. So this is then going to be the way in which we collaborate as the three spheres of government.
Okay, what has happened today then?
So we're busy inspecting a number of buildings. We're also inspecting businesses as well to see whether or not they comply with the relevant legislation. And also with regards to buildings, are the occupants of those buildings legally there? Are they illegal? There's one that we actually came across. It's disguised as a scrapyard or a panel beating company, but upon entry, they're actually shacks erected inside and there are people living in there, but the conditions are not that habitable.
Okay, what has been so now that you have this agreement, I mean, clearly it gives you far more powers than you had before, right?
It just basically means that the three spheres of government are going to collaborate and work together in the fight against crime. Not necessarily powers, but putting together resources to fight crime effectively.
I mean, it does, and it's not really for you to fully explain this, but it does. It's rather puzzling that the three spheres of government have not had that sort of agreement in place before, isn't it? Because we know crime, whether we like it or not, is one of the big soft underbellies of South African life.
This has been a long time coming, where you actually have the three spheres of government collaborating. And that's one thing that the minister has been emphasizing, to say we all have our different resources, we all have our different strategies and policies, but ultimately we need to come together to actually see the realization of this goal that we're all working towards. And it's only through working together that we'll actually be successful.
What has been the reaction to today's raids?
So the minister and the mayor of Ekurhuleni had an interaction with residents around Germiston CBD. And the sentiment was that the streets are unsafe. You cannot walk past 4 o'clock in the afternoon and not get robbed. So those have been the sentiments. But the minister has assured residents that we are going to be on the ground. We are going to be visible together with the city, together with the Gauteng provincial government. And residents have been welcoming of this, and they are really hopeful that the minister and the mayor are going to actually see this through.
Okay, so that would be from, the residents. Then you get others, right? And again, the issues people who are partaking in crime or practicing crime, criminal acts. And then also others, I understand there's been an issue around, again, foreign nationals coming to the fore. Did you people, as part of your activities, get a chance to engage with them? Because again, there's them who may feel like, we're being unfairly treated here.
So we actually are with officials from Home Affairs who are actually then checking with regards to the relevant documentation that enables foreign nationals to be in the country. And unfortunately, where we come across individuals that don't have the necessary papers, then the law must take its course. But where we have foreign nationals that are in possession of documents and are legally in the country, then it's a situation of we are trying to make the city safe, but also greatly South Africa safe. So there is an understanding that we are here to carry out the enforcement of legal provisions. And there is understanding that we haven't really come across any citizens, whether foreign or national, that have ill sentiments towards our operation.
Okay, so you've had no negative sentiments. It's like, what are you doing here? You trying to mess up our lives. I'm just trying to think about the emotions of people, legal or illegal, that ultimately at its very core, people are trying to, survive. I mean, it's a common feature around the world, isn't it?
No, it is. But at the same time, there's a certain manner in which our operations are carried out. We basically do prescribe the law. We do mention the law to the individuals that we come across. And it's done in a respectful manner, not necessarily with violence or force. So I think that's also something that has reassured them to say we are just carrying out our operations. There's nothing ill or untoward with what we're doing.
Okay, let's leave it at that, and we certainly will follow that developing story, not just today, but certainly now that you have far more muscle. You may disagree with the words, but certainly you have more muscle. We'll certainly see how that plays out. Appreciate you giving off your time.
Thank you very much, Ashraf.
Thank you so much. Spokesperson for the Minister of Police. There we are, as they carry out raids now, a bit more empowered than they were yesterday. What do you make of that? Any thoughts, any comments, personal experiences? It could be something that's affected you directly. You could be from that Germiston region, and you've seen how these changes now will play out. And do you give a thumbs up or a thumbs down? I would certainly like to know. We will talk about the election in Mozambique right after this.
Andile, the CEO of a multinational corporation, is driving home with his daughter.
Dad, why is the tooth fairy so stingy?
Stingy? Well, she makes sure everyone gets something.
Does everyone at your company get something?
Yes, they're covered by Old Mutual Corporate's employee benefits.
Even Abdul.
Of course, he gets retirement benefits.
And Susampa on that big machine.
She gets group risk cover if that big machine hurts her.
Wow, that's amazing, Dad.
Visit oldmutual.co.za/employee benefits and go from questions to solutions for your employees with Old Mutual Corporate. Old Mutual Life Assurance Company SA Limited is a licensed FSP and life insurer. T's and C's apply.
The ring personnel has been summoned to the Jade International Boxing Festival at Tabamashate in Burgersfort this Friday night. WBF Intercontinental Champion Mzansi's Agani Sambu collides with John Chua of Tanzania, while South Africa's Nosiwakase Dube confronts Chimwemwe Banda of Malawi in the International Female Junior Bantamweight bout. Meanwhile, Sfiso Tongane from Limpopo battles it out with KZN's Kanaiseni Mbogazi in the Junior Lightweight. Prince Ndlovu clashes with Congolese tough rock Blaise Mujinga. Catch more electrifying bouts of the Jade International Boxing Festival this Friday, 11 October at 8:30 p.m. live on SABC Sport Channel on DTT Channel 4 and SABC 2 at 10:30 p.m. Also available on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The Blue Sharks want to dive deep and secure 3 points to keep the second position in Group C. While the Zebras of Southern Africa are searching for their first win, they want to escape from the basement. Who will enjoy the final whistle dance of celebration? This is the Total Energies AFCON 2025 qualifier. Experience the journey to Morocco. Cape Verde versus Botswana on Thursday, 10 October at 6 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available everywhere for everyone, always on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
Right, I need to take some of your calls and comments again as soon as I can. I really want to do that. Let's, however, talk about what's going on in Mozambique, right? Nixon Katembo is with us. Of course, he does great work for Channel Africa, part of the SABC, so naturally he's there and I'm not, right? Nixon, appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Ashraf. Thanks for having me.
Glad we could finally connect. I know we had some difficulty doing just that, right? So let's talk about the election, right? 17 million voters, I understand. I think the big thing on everybody's mind is who will emerge victorious.
Yes, at this moment it's difficult to pinpoint exactly who is going to remain victorious, but it's one thing for sure that emerged throughout the course of the day is the number of young voters turning out in their big numbers to come and cast their ballot. We don't know at this point who they are voting for, but one of the opinions that they have voiced out is the word change. Whether that change is going to translate onto their ballots is one of the things that now we are going to witness when voting count begins, when the polling stations close at 6 p.m. here in Mozambique.
And I mean, I mentioned the numbers of 17 million voters. How does that... so that would be eligible voters, I would gather, right? How does it translate in terms of what is the likely final percentage of voters who would actually vote? I understand you can't put an exact figure, but in terms of what you understand?
Well, there is a high turnout vote, particularly in Maputo here where I'm based. As for other places across the country, because this is a huge country, I cannot say that is an overall picture of the country. But one can see that there was a huge turnout of voters in the city alone of Maputo. If other cities and other provinces within the country have witnessed a similar turnout of voters, then that means there will be a likely high turnout of vote overall tallies going towards the end of the voting. But depending on the 17 million voters, some of which is an increase about, say, 29%
of the overall voter registration. Where if we all turn out and it goes up to maybe 40 to 50% of the voter who came to cast their ballot, and I think that will be a welcome plus for democracy in Mozambique. However, it's also about the results when they get announced. Whether there will be a free and fair results, a true reflection of the ballot that was casted at the polling stations. Already, some of the opposition leaders have voiced some concerns about how the election management were handled in terms of allowing party agents to be monitoring the process. Some of them were not accredited by the Electoral Commission, which then raises a question on who is observing whether the Independent Electoral Commission can be an arbiter at same times, a referee at same times a player.
Well, I suppose we can draw on the South African example as well. As you know, I mean, we have an IEC. There were observers. They were very happy, but there were proposals. There were arguments. There were positions put forward by parties to say they were not happy with the processes. Right? Do you have a sense that overall how the elections would be run in Mozambique would come across as free and fair? That means it would be credible.
Well, we will wait for the assessment of many observers who are here. One can deduce from the fact that given the statements that have been given by the opposition and the opinions of some of the Mozambican people that we have spoken to, they're likely to be a contestation of the result. That is my personal opinion. As a person who comes from outside and who is just here for a few days, it's only my opinion is born out of the interactions so far that I've had with people and listening to this statement coming out from political leaders. So it's not a call for me or anyone except for those who are mandated, including the official observer from the African Union, the European Union, COMESA, and many others, and SADC as well, to decide whether they are in the observation they saw this as a free and fair.
Fine, I mean, that's understandable, right? Let's then talk about who's likely to win the election. So I understand that the Frelimo party, I mean, they've been around, the party of Samora Machel, for 50 years, and they've been in power. That is
49 years.
Well, there you are, 49 years, right? I mean, is there any, well, maybe just two questions. Why have they not lost their hold on governing the country when so many other parties, including in our country, the ANC, finally starts losing? Why have they been that strong and powerful? And are they expected to continue that?
Well, I think one of the challenges around how the demographic composition of Mozambique, to the historical and the political trajectory of the country. Remember that this is a country that faced a civil war immediately after independence, where Renamo waged a war against Frelimo, Renamo being supported by the then apartheid government in South Africa. So, and this was born out of contestation between the East and the West, the Frelimo being supported by the Soviet Union and the likes of China, waging a war against the Portuguese. So that is kind of reformed the political trajectory that happened in the country. And you would recall that this is the first time the candidates who are presenting themselves for this election, except for one person, are all have not participated in the War of Liberation. The previous candidates have been participating in the War of Liberation either from the Renamo side, who are contesting Frelimo through the military or armed struggle, or Renamo or Frelimo or ruling party Renamo, who are contesting for Frelimo through armed struggle. And you recall that they signed a peace agreement in 2019, which effectively ended the armed insurrection.
Let's lastly talk about some of the safety in the region. We know some parts of the country, particularly the northern parts of Mozambique, as you said, it's a very large country, less safe than others because of insurgents with their own political agendas. What is your sense? I know you're far away from there right now, but do you get a sense that everything is safe enough to be able to contest an election?
So if you are this side of Maputo where I am, it is difficult to assess what is happening on the ground in a provinces such as Cabo Delgado, or however reports that we're getting from there, and talking to our local colleagues who are in the media industry. They tell us that there hasn't been too much of concern in terms of security. And we hope that will not going to impact. However, the displacement of people of Cabo Delgado is a major concern, because some has been displaced and never returned, although some have returned in a province, and I think that is an issue on its own in a way that have some sort of an impact on electoral management and the entire electoral process in the province.
Well, that's where we will leave it, and the million-dollar question is, when will the results come out? Who will finally win, and will the issues that arouses the public concern, will they be addressed? Nixon Katembo, that question maybe for another day. Appreciate you giving us your time. Reporter, commentator for Channel Africa, but now covering the election in Mozambique from Maputo, as you've just heard. Let's get the news now. It's 4 o'clock. Here's Majubi.
Much, Mr. G. The top stories this hour: another blow for Khumalo's MK battle, and Eskom concerned over its finances. A very good afternoon. The Electoral Court has dismissed former MK party leader Jabulani Khumalo's application for leave to appeal. He had sought to overturn an earlier judgment that dismissed his application against the IEC for his removal as MK party leader. In a judgment dated the 4th of October, the court dismissed the application with costs. In June, Khumalo lost his bid to be reinstated as party leader. The specialist court cited that his application constitute an abuse of the court's processes and a waste of the judicial economy and the opposing respondents' resources. The judgment has since been welcomed by the MK party. The newly elected Tshwane Mayor Nasipi Moya says restoring the city's finances and service delivery are her priorities. She was elected this afternoon after she clinched 122 votes, while former Mayor Silias Brinker, who was removed in a motion of confidence 2 weeks ago, obtained 86 votes. Moya says the new executive will have to review the city's funding plan to rehabilitate the city's finances.
When we approved the budget, it was approved with the funding plan. So that funding plan was endorsed by National Treasury. However, one thing we've noted is that there's slow in terms of us getting the revenue in. Obviously, when the executive comes in, one of the things that we need to focus on is to review the funding plan, both the implementation of it and also whatever gaps that we can identify in the funding plan. But I am confident that with that funding plan as the base, we will be able to improve and move from that.
Eskom has warned that its financial sustainability hangs in the balance as the power utility anticipates a 1 billion rand loss in the current financial year. It says the revised 250 billion rand debt relief from the government will be ineffective if the tariff issue and municipal debt amounting to 85 billion is not addressed. Eskom CFO Khalib Kasim appeared before Parliament reporting on Eskom's financial performance.
The debt relief has been a tremendous catalyst, but more importantly, if we don't address the other components of the financial sustainability, our fear that it may give us a runway of about 3-4 years into the future, but if the tariffs are not addressed and the municipal debt is not addressed, we would find the benefits we've received from the debt relief would be eroded in a short space of time, and then we would go back to an unsustainable position again.
8 police officers have appeared in the Cape Town Magistrates Court on charges of armed robbery, extortion, and defeating the ends of justice. The officers attached to the Public Order Police Unit were arrested in connection with the extortion incident at 2 Chinese shops in Milnerton. A 9th suspect, a former police officer, was added as an additional suspect today. The matter was postponed to the 22nd of this month for a bail information. The NPA says the state will oppose bail. And the aviation giant Boeing has withdrawn its 30% pay rise offer to striking staff in the U.S. This after negotiations with union and federal mediators collapsed today. Boeing accuses Machinists and Aerospace Workers Union of not giving its proposals a serious consideration. The union says the company was not willing to negotiate the terms of its latest offer. The BBC's James Wickham has more.
Boeing's had an exceptionally troubled last few years. It's dealing with historic losses, while production slowed because of concerns about the quality of its manufacturing. It's also facing this challenge from its own staff, with more than 30,000 workers going on strike last month. Their union, the IAM, is seeking a 40% pay rise over 4 years and a better pension scheme. Last month, Boeing announced what it called its best and final offer to them, which proposed a 30% rise over 4 years. This standoff adds to the issues faced by Boeing's new chief executive, Kelly Ortberg, who was appointed in August with a mission to turn the business around.
The top story at 4 o'clock, the Electoral Court has dismissed former MK Party leader Jabulani Khumalo's application for leave to appeal. For SAFM News, and
in your sports this hour, Arthur Zwane thanks Kaizer Chiefs after joining Amazulu as joint head coach alongside Vusimusi Vilakazi. Semenya pleased with Team South Africa's track and field performance at the Olympics, and golf cruises into Wuhan last 16. More details at 4:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Might be a bit of rain around parts of Gauteng this afternoon. Looks like it's coming in quite heavily from western area up through Lenasia area. So from the southwest up into Joburg, drive carefully, please, if it's wet where you are. The Mike 1 is very heavy again today from Sandton all the way through to Omonde. No gaps in that traffic as you run down through central Joburg and into the deep south. The R21 has roadworks both ways today at the Benoni exit, so very heavy getting away from the airport, and quite a heavy queue on your way to the airport from Tembisa. The vehicle fire at Spaghetti Junction going north has been cleared up. That traffic starting to flow. The southbound still very heavy. A crash on the M4, the Ruthurst Highway at Virginia Airport. There's a really big backlog of traffic heading to Umhlanga. The queue back around Blue Lagoon. The M7 from Bel Air Wakesley out towards the Belleville Road exit. Very slow going today. And Cape Town side, the N2 outbound from Searle Street on Nelson Mandela Boulevard, sitting in traffic right through to Boonga Avenue out at Langa before that eases. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Stay safe on the roads. SAFM is with you.
Spring is in the air, and it's almost time for SA Garden Day on Sunday, 20 October. Celebrate your garden with a tea party, a luncheon, or simply lying down with a good book. Invite friends, family, or neighbors to appreciate your garden. Visit gardenday.co.za for ideas and inspiration. And remember to upload your flower crown selfie to social media, the ultimate Garden Day accessory. Mark your calendar. SA Garden Day, Sunday, 20 October.
After registering 4 points in their first 2 matches, the Mambas of Mars target a huge win to keep their top status in Group I. But Stangsem Negati want out of the bottom position. They believe not even the Mozambican heat will stop them from getting their first win. This is the Total Energies AFCON 2025 qualifier. Experience the meeting between neighbors. Mozambique versus Eswatini on Friday, 11 October at 3 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on TTT Channel 4. Also available everywhere for everyone. Always on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
You're listening to the National Pulse. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
So it has been over 3 weeks since I've been off air, but I'm on air today on a significant day, the appointment of the new mayor in the city of Tshwane. We'll talk about that. Of course, we're talking about Dr. Nasipi Moya. We've had a conversation already with Herman Mashaba, the leader of Action SA. We'll get reaction from the DA and the ANC. All three our top stories over the next 3 hours. The podcast, by the way, of Herman Mashaba, you'll find it right away. Go to the website, safm.coza, but also we also tweet it out so you can check it out. I often ask you to tweet out where you're listening in from, and Marika doing the same. Marika saying, listening to the National Pulse from Queenstown, Komani in the Eastern Cape. Well, thank you so much for that. I love the picture as well that you have sent. Bring them on. Further pictures, and you can send it via WhatsApp, wherever you are in the country, in the world. Sipho Sithole, you listening in, I know I take it to USA. Thank you for that. Send a picture to, if you can, 0614 104 107. Yeah, picture with your dial locked onto SFM. It's just great. And you can also tweet it out. And if you are tweeting, use the hashtag #TheNationalPulse. Now, what is it you want to get off your chest? Well, let me hear it. 086 000 2032. 086 000 2032. Someone said, Ashraf, remind us, where were you? Well, Montreal, Toronto, both in Canada, and then London. Mainly work, Montreal, One Young World Conference where I was moderating, and then the others were visiting family in Canada, in Toronto, and then sightseeing in London. All that happened in over 3 weeks. Well, there's no sightseeing in the city of Tshwane, but many may say there is, because it's a bit of an excursion. Things come, things go. You have to check it out again. That clearly has happened now that we have a new mayor. When I had left, we had a mayor who was the mayor from the DA that led the city of Tshwane. That is not the case any longer. We have a new mayor, Dr. Nasipi Moya. So let's get further reaction. We've already got Herman Mashaba's thoughts. We have the reaction from the DA Tshwane spokesperson, Kwena Moloto. Kwena, appreciate your time and thanks for connecting to the National Pulse.
No, thank you for having me, and thank you to your listeners.
I'm going to put it this way. I think the DA's pulse rate is rather racing, and for all the wrong reasons, isn't it?
Yeah, no. I think our pulses have been racing for a while. It's unfortunate what happened today.
So when you reflect today, I mean, look, it wasn't a surprise. I've been abroad, as I've mentioned, but it wasn't a surprise. This was going to happen. But when you, as a party, now reflect on, what has just happened over the last few weeks, to say, our mayor is not the mayor any longer, and what seemed to be impossible has just happened. So, on reflection, how do you internalize this as a party?
No, I think it was a very telling day. First of all, inside the announcement that took place at 9 o'clock with Action SA, the ANC and EFF, Panyaza Lesufi and Herman Mashaba both alluded to the fact that these were negotiations that had been going on for over 2 months, backdating all the way to the negotiations around Joburg. And we found that interesting, given the fact that Herman Mashaba claimed that the reason Action SA left this coalition was because the DA had been doing such. And I think that myth was dispelled today. But upon reflection, we feel that it's extremely unfortunate that Celia Brink has not come back as the executive mayor. I think that over the past 18 months, what him and his team have been able to achieve has been phenomenal. We've seen the turnaround of Tshwane's finances, movement towards energy independence. In fact, the next few weeks, we're going to see clean water rolled out inside taps in Hammanskraal, which has been an issue, predating 2016. And so for it to be cut short as a result of, political tensions and political opportunism, we think is extremely unfortunate. But at the same time, we are more than willing to continue fighting for the residents of Tshwane from the opposition benches.
Now, it's interesting you say that because, Herman Mashaba made the point again, it's not the first time, that and as we know the way the political structures work in many cities or parts of our country, certainly in the case of the city of Tshwane, is that if you remove the Action SA and their support of the DA, then it allows them to be in a position where they can support the ANC, and therefore the balance of power shifts. I mean, that's precisely what's happened, right? And he made the point again that they are not with the DA on this issue because they can't be in an abusive relationship. How do you go about rectifying that, keeping in mind he's now with the ANC, a party that he has vowed never to do any business with?
I mean, listening to Herman, this notion of an abusive relationship, statements where he says his body physically can't handle it anymore. I mean, it's absurd. If you look just inside the media space over the course of this multi-party government's term from 2021, it's consistently been Action SA that's been attacking this government. Just look inside the last month. Action SA has gone on a complete attack campaign against the multi-party government, which at the time they still served in, going around pointing out service delivery issues inside townships, trying to paint the narrative that the DA doesn't care about the townships, as if they did not have the deputy mayor at the time and the MMC of economic development. And so I think that Herman's got it completely twisted. He cited multiple reasons for leaving this coalition government, but in the end of the day, I think Herman liked the idea of being kingmaker. He needed someone to blame for the poor electoral result of Action SA in 2024, and the DA has always been an easy scapegoat for him.
Okay, but I mean, if for example, that you are right about what you're saying, right? I mean, one thing I'm right about in saying is that, yesterday's enemy is today's friend. We've seen it with the DA and the ANC, so that's not a surprise either, right? What seems unthinkable on a Monday is very possible on a Tuesday. That's happened as well, right? But if we're following your line of thought, right, then my point to you then, not so much about the Action SA's poor showing at the election, is that how then could the DA position itself where they allowed an important member of their coalition, right, to actually move to the other side? So in strategic business political terms, I mean, the DA themselves, you lost out.
No, I think look, we definitely lost out inside the short term. I think, unfortunately, it's the residents of Tshwane that will lose out in the long term. But I think the biggest loser here is Action SA. We've seen this format before. We saw it in Joburg. We saw it in Nkuruleni, where the EFF and the ANC prop up a junior coalition partner as mayor, but then they control the strings. We've said Action SA didn't take over government today. The ANC and EFF took over government today, and I think also very clearly it's showing also disunity within inside the GNU, and I think as a party the DA is also going to have to reflect on our position inside the GNU, and also the various things that have happened over the past few months.
Okay, but let's talk about that. Our position within the GNU, if I'm quoting you correctly, right? So I've been abroad, as you may be aware, and I've just come back today, being day one. But what I've heard is that members of the DA, maybe it was even Helen Zille, and again I stand to be corrected, saying if this goes through, we will have to review our relationship regarding the GNU. So are you reviewing that now? Could this mark the end of the GNU?
I don't necessarily want to speculate it marking the end of the GNU, but I do think that it's a conversation that needs to be had. I mean, over the past few months, we've already seen the ANC remove the DA in 2 municipalities inside the Western Cape since joining the GNU. We saw how there was no engagement regarding the Bella Bill, even though it had been agreed beforehand that we should engage on the matter, and now we've been removed from the capital city. I believe that 2024 called upon the DA and the ANC to put political differences aside for the best interests of the residents of South Africa. And when we made the decision to join the GNU, it was in that spirit. But when we look at what's happening, and how it would seem that the anti-GNU forces within the ANC, Panyaza Lesufi's faction, when it seems that they're the tail that's wagging the dog, it does make one question whether or not this really does benefit South Africans. And I'll bring it home as well, is that, I mean, Gauteng is the economic hub of this country, a massive, massive population base, and they've been denied the benefits of the GNU because at a provincial level we were removed and or weren't included, and now in Tshwane we've been removed. And I think one of the core tenets of the DA joining the GNU was to say we need to keep EFF and MK out, but Gauteng residents are now being subjected to EFF government.
Maybe it suggests that the whole notion of the GNU in its current format is by its nature very, very artificial and therefore lacks any degree of permanence. But that's not for me to answer. That's certainly for the politicians out there to do the same. Perhaps more significantly, as we get to the end of this conversation, Saliers Brinkham himself, I mean, in all these conversations, I think he couldn't quite believe that he's not the mayor, that he's done nothing wrong. According to him, his track record has been super. I know there's been a counter-argument to that from the other parties. But the more important one then is, what does the DA then now do within the city of Tshwane? What would be your plan, and what would be your plan nationally? Can you give us any insights going forward?
Yeah, no, I think, often opposition parties' stance is that they'll wait to the next election, but that's not the stance we're going to take. We have a massive amount of councillors inside the city of Tshwane. We're the second largest party, and so it's still on us to ensure that the residents of Tshwane are not affected by this political instability that's been created. We've seen this playbook before when DA governments have been removed in municipalities and Gauteng, that there are certain things that tend to happen. So what we'll be looking out for specifically in Tshwane is, one, we know that there was a massive issue with the Rooiwal wastewater treatment tender and Edwin Saudi linked consortium getting that. And there were 5 officials that have been pointed out in a forensic report that are currently suspended. We will make sure that report is not withdrawn, that those suspensions are not lifted because it's important that they are held accountable for their actions. That's first of all. Second of all, we've made massive strides towards ensuring that the residents of Hammanskraal get clean drinking water. That will be rolled out over the next few months, and will ensure that process takes place. But I think most importantly is that we have to keep administrations apolitical, and we have appointed as council a completely new senior management team that has been doing wonders inside the city of Tshwane. And we will be watching with a keen eye as to whether or not these senior managers are removed, intimidated, and will ensure that even if we need to go to court, that we don't see the removal of apolitical senior management to be replaced by politicized.
Let's see how that plays out. Kweno Moloto, the DA Tshwane spokesperson. It is as complex as that, isn't it? It's not political. It's about service delivery. That's what the Action SA team says. But everything for me is political.
So why should I use We Buy Cars if I want to sell my vehicle?
Because We Buy Cars buys cars.
But will I get the right price?
Of course. We Buy Cars buys thousands of vehicles and knows exactly what every vehicle is worth. Their buyers deliver exceptional service and pay you immediately.
And how do I know what they'll pay for my vehicle?
It's easy. Visit webuycars.co.za or use the We Buy Cars app. Follow the simple steps and voila, you'll know your car's value in no time. We Buy Cars. Quick, easy, the best.
The Blue Sharks want to dive deep and secure 3 points to keep the second position in Group C. While the Zebras of Southern Africa are searching for their first win, they want to escape from the basement. Who will enjoy the final whistle dance of celebration? This is the Total Energies AFCON 2025 qualifier. Experience the journey to Morocco. Cape Verde versus Botswana on Thursday, 10 October at 6 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available everywhere for everyone, always on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Okay, there's a range of welcome back, Ashraf, to the show. Much appreciated. Yeah, it's amazing. And I said this before, 3 weeks away. Really, you feel like this new kid in a school classroom, like, first day of school. then everything changes. I almost think when I got out of my lift today to the 6th floor of SAFM, I turned right instead of turning left. It's that sort of confusion, but then you get to it very, very quickly. So Lebokong Taita saying, Ashraf, welcome back. Great show as always. Listening to you from Gauteng, Germiston. So you are exactly where we were discussing earlier on. That police raid, right? And there's more. There's a couple more. Some people also tweeting out or posting via WhatsApp their pictures of where they are. And I love it when you do that. Just send us a picture of where you are. Dial locked onto SAFM wherever you may be in the country, and you can also tweet it using the hashtag The National Pulse. Right, let's talk about water. Water issues are big issues, aren't they? So the water issues now in the Hammanskraal region apparently have gone from bad to worse. And the issues of water in Gauteng and the other parts of the country are something we've talked about often. So let's now get the thoughts of Dr. Ferial Adam, the the executive manager of Water Cairn, talking about the issues around Hammanskraal and the Louwkraal Dam as well. Dr. Ferial Adam, I appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Ashraf. Good afternoon to you and to your listeners.
Thank you. Right, let's talk about the bad tours. I mean, how bad is this?
Look, I think it is a concern because, we've been having issues in Hammanskraal for a long time. I mean, over 20 years. So you can understand the frustration that people are experiencing there when there is no water again. The one thing that they were guaranteed is that they're going to have clean drinking water on an ongoing basis. And the whole thing that sparked this, if you remember, was the cholera outbreak that happened. And we don't know what caused it, but that got people into action to make sure that people will have clean drinking water. So this shutdown, we're saying temporary, but I think it's 4 weeks that they're planning to shut down. That is a long time for people to then go back to having to rely on tanks, and frustration is growing.
So what's the solution here? Because, first of all, you're saying it's going on forever, right? Hammanskraal, you can think, how can it be that a community can have no, reliable water for 20 years in democratic South Africa? Just talking about getting your priorities all wrong. So that's the one part. Then in terms of the current problem right now, and you and I have had many conversations, it looks like none of these things are sustainable, are they?
No, it's not. And the other concern about it is the increasing reliance on water tankers. And I think that is something that it should not be the norm. So now for 4 weeks, people are going to have to rely on water tanks. They're not always accessible. They don't come on the reliable times. And then people who can't, walk to these tanks, they just don't have access to water. Now, in Hammanskraal specifically, the water treatment plant seems to be working fine. But the problem is the Rooiwal wastewater treatment plant, and that is a big concern. So that is something that needs better investigation. Even though it was said that it was fixed and everything's running, I think at this time we need to know for sure that that these kind of things are not happening. It was a fire at this point, I think, that caused the shutdown and a power supply interruption that following a fire that caused the problem. But we need better investigations. We need to get to the bottom of it. Don't just say it was a power supply interruption. We want to know exactly what happened, because I think until we really unpack it, we might find that some of the things are human caused, some of it is technical, but we need to actually start rooting it out, because you can't keep having this problem in Hammanskraal.
And if you can share with us, what impact is it having on the community of Hammanskraal? Because often when we talk about issues like this, we tend to speak on macro departmental level and very little about, the people in the street, how it changes their lives. Can you share anything with us about that?
I'm speaking from quite a distance away, but I can only imagine that for 4 weeks you are not going to have water. If we look at other parts of Joburg, we've been having water cuts on a regular basis. Ashraf, are you still there?
Yes, I am. Go ahead. You were saying, yeah.
Okay. We've been having people who have been having no water for 7 days, 8 days, etc. And the anger and the frustration, and it's just increasing. Can you imagine people who need to get ready for work? They don't have water for their businesses. They don't have proper water to get to schools, the clinics. It impacts every aspect of our lives. And the people in Hammanskraal tend to be kind of, it's far away, so it's that issue. But I think that it just affects the whole functioning of the town and the city in Hammanskraal and the surrounding areas. Also, the shutdown could they're saying affect northern parts of Tshwane. So it's more than just Hammanskraal that we're experiencing. I mean, I think that is the concern. We also, what is lacking? It is not enough to say this has happened, we are going to have a shutdown and it's going to be for 4 weeks. We need people on the ground to make sure that people, that residents can understand what's going on, that we have officials that can calm the situation and explain to people and help people. We need to see a helping hand where people are saying, I can't carry my water to my house. Someone from government then must do it, because you've got people without water again for 4 weeks.
Okay, so lastly, and when you talk about we need people on the ground, how do we get the people that we need on the ground to do what you're suggesting?
I think that there needs to be more visibility of the Tshwane municipality at this time. It's a pity that they're changing mayors, etc., so they may make this a political issue. But there are people responsible for water and water supply. They need to be communicating regularly in a language that people can understand, not technical terms, but also they're saying they're supplying water tanks. How are they letting people know where these water tanks will be, how long they will be there, what assistance will be provided if you can't get to a water tank?
Well, let's leave it at that. And all I can say is to the new mayor of the city of Tshwane, that's Mayor Nazipi Moya. Well, there you are. You said it's not political, it's all about service delivery. Here it is, service delivery. Action Hammanskraal. For 30 years, the news headlines with Majupi.
Thank you very much, Mr. Garda, and a very good afternoon. In your headlines, the SCOPA chairperson Songezwa Zibi has argued that Eskom's financial position poses a threat to the future of the country. The Electoral Court has dismissed former MK Party leader Jabulani Khumalo's application for leave to appeal, and the mayor of Serbia's capital, Belgrade, has called for a change to the city's red buses, saying red is a color of socialism. And those are your headlines. Greg will have your full update at 5.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Well, a bit of an exciting afternoon all of a sudden for Joburg. Motorists who are driving home through rain and wetter weather conditions. Bit of a thunderstorm has left some very slow-go traffic all around the highway network. Some systems I monitor are just completely all slowing up at the same time. Buccleuch down to Soweto, Sandton down to Umonde. On the Mike 1's particularly heavy. Buccleuch down towards Germiston on the N3, very slow as well. Complicating matters if you're going to the north on the highways. There's a big backlog getting through Buccleuch and on towards the N1 Midrand. There's a crash at Allendale Road. That's a really severe backlog on the Mike 1 from Parktown, Houghton area. N3 from Limbro Park, N1 from Ravonia. Both of those highways as well, all backed up. Getting through Buccleuch for a turn up to Midrand is heavy today. Very big traffic on the R21 leaving the airport up towards roadworks at Benoni off-ramp. That's a lot heavier than normal. If you're airport bound, there's also some roadworks by the Benoni exit, so coming through from Tembisa. You'll need extra time to get through that. Durban crash on the M4, the Ruthfirst Highway by Virginia Airport. Traffic stays heavy from Blue Lagoon on your way towards Mhlanga. The M7 from Rossborough all the way through to Belleville Road at Queensborough. That is absolutely solid. If you're on your way to Pinetown, you might want to consider an alternative route around that one. And Cape Town, fairly busy on the N1 today from the city centre all the way through to Okavango Road. It's just busy all the way through without too many gaps in that traffic. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This is SAFM Sports with Tumi Nkgapele.
Right, Chumi, there's a managerial merry-go-round of sorts, right?
Absolutely. That is in the Betway Premiership, of course. And newly appointed AmaZulu co-coach Arthur Zwane has thanked Kaizer Chiefs and chairman for giving him great experience after joining the KZN side. Zwane was announced as Usuthu head coach alongside Vusimusi Vilakazi. Now, the appointment comes after a poor start to the season, Usuthu losing their first 3 games of the season. And with Zwane joining AmaZulu, obviously, it's a heartbreak from Chiefs' side because he's leaving Chiefs after 24 years of service. both as a player and as a coach. So wishing him well in terms of his next role as the head coach at AmaZulu. Still staying with football, Stellenbosch FC goalkeeper Sage Stevens says that there's no time to throw a pity party following the defeat to Orlando Pirates in the MTN 8 final, with the next assignment to defend the Carling Black Label knockout. Now, the draw was conducted yesterday, and Stellies will face AmaZulu, who have just appointed Zwane and Vilakazi as co-coaches away in the opening round of the Cup. And Stevens insists that they need to immediately move on.
No, I think it definitely helps. But like you said, the nice thing is that it shows that we're competing. To come off the back of a cup final, come to the launch today and know your opponent, and being the defending champions, it's special. It shows that Stellenbosch is competing like we want to, like we aim to, and it just it makes us feel very proud and humble at the same time.
Moving on to cricket, Joe Root has overtaken Sir Alistair Cook to become England's highest test run scorer of all time. Root eclipsed Cook's tally of 12,472 test runs when he hit an elegant straight drive back past Amir Jamal to reach 71 against Pakistan on day 3 of the first test. Now, the 33-year-old, who is playing in his 147th test, reached the landmark in 14 test fewer than Cook and now sits 5th in the all-time list. In rugby, the directors of the now defunct Melbourne Rebels Rugby Club have launched a legal battle against Rugby Australia. They are looking for 355 million rand in damages over the club's closure. According to a report by the Sydney Morning Herald, the case filed in the federal court also demands that control of the club be returned to the directors so the Rebels can continue competing in Super Rugby Pacific. Now, Rugby Australia shut down the Rebels in May. This is following failed mediation attempts, leaving the club's creditors owing around 23 million Australia dollars to the Australian tax office, and the directors have been warned by ATO that they could be personally liable for the debts, which could become a key issue in the legal dispute. Then in tennis, Coco Gauff cruised into the last 16 at the WTA 1000 Wuhan Open today with a 6-1 and 6-2 win over Tomova. The 20-year-old just needed 76 minutes to get past the world number 48, despite dropping her serve in the opening game of the match. She'll face 13th seed Marta Kostek next, and Gauff holds a 2-1 career head-to-head record over the Ukrainian. Anything's off with athletics. 2-time Olympic track and field gold medalist Caster Semenya believes that there's still room for improvement in the country's athletics performance. Although she attended the recent Olympic Games as a guest, Semenya was impressed by the efforts of the South African athletics team, which contributed 2 of the nation's 6 total medals. Now, as South Africa gears up for the 2028 Games in Los Angeles, Semenya stressed the need for continued efforts to further support the team.
Was there, in person. I think, look, in terms of development, I would say we are doing well. It's just, I think for us as a nation, we just need to make sure that we back up, our athletes, but as well as coaches need to understand that we need to focus on the goals, which is the goal is to win medals, but also understand the process of, getting into, winning medals, which it starts, from practice and also how we race, it leads you into that. But I think it's a positive outcome, being able to win, 2 medals. It shows that we can still do more. It's just a matter of us, as athletes, as coaches, to make sure that we work towards the goals, not just to show up.
On that note, it's a wrap from my side for now.
I've been following this. It was Joe Root, right?
Yes.
I mean, I must say offhand, if you ask me about Test cricket these days, I probably have less of a knowledge compared to before. But then when I saw his record, it's formidable.
Absolutely great. I mean, he made his debut back in 2012, and since then, he's hit 34 Test centuries with a top score of around 254 against Pakistan. So it's amazing.
And there's only about 5 cricketers who've got more Test centuries than him.
Yeah.
I think it's Sachin Tendulkar number 1. Right? Yeah. But anyway, formidable. So there we are. We will learn more about Joe Root and just how impressive he's been for for England, right? Yeah. Okay, let's find another big cricketer for South Africa one that we can talk
Please.
about with glowing. We need that master batsman. We haven't had that one for a long, long time.
Especially when it comes to Test cricket.
Well, all forms of cricket, like an absolute genius who can dominate our game from the top, right? More sport in an hour.
Andile, the CEO of a multinational corporation, is driving home with his daughter.
Dad, why is the Tooth Fairy so stingy?
Stingy? Well, she makes sure everyone gets something.
Does every electrical company get something?
Yes, they're covered by Old Mutual Corporate's employee benefits.
Even Abdul.
Of course, he gets retirement benefits.
And Sisampo on that big machine.
She gets group risk cover if that big machine hurts her.
Wow, that's amazing, Dad.
Visit oldmutual.co.za/employee benefits and go from questions to solutions for your employees with Old Mutual Corporate. Old Mutual Life Assurance Company SA Limited is a licensed FSP and life insurer. T's and C's apply.
CAF President Dr. Patrice Motsepe said, the exponential growth and global competitiveness of football in Africa has resulted in substantial interests from major African and international broadcasters in African football. SABC has been participating competitively in the CAF media rights bids. CAF welcomes them as partners, joining a number of CAF's media rights holders. We are committed to ensuring that CAF's competitions, including its broadcast products, are world-class.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
And let's certainly get to the markets with Makwe Masilela, the Chief Investment Officer at Makwe Fund Managers. Good chatting to you as always. Let's talk about AfriMat, right? And then we get on to local and global markets.
Afternoon, Ashraf, and to the listeners, and welcome back. Remember, AfriMat is a mid-tier mining and materials company, and the guys expect profits as headline earnings per share to drop by 85%, and that is due to Q1 sales volumes and revenues for local iron ore were impacted as one of their customers' furnace was frozen, and international iron ore exports saw a 5% decrease, that's in US dollar prices, and a 21% increase in shipping cost, and the concurrent strengthening of the rand, and the rail shipment via Transnet fell by 20%. And when it comes to market spending patterns during the Chinese Golden Week holiday, suggest consumer sentiment remains muted despite some signs of stabilization after the barrage of stimulus, and volatility in China is dampening market sentiments, and US Department of Justice is considering a breakup of Google. That's following a monopoly ruling, and market participants waiting for Fed minutes later tonight and CPI tomorrow for more clues on the central bank's next steps. But the global stocks are up, with the JSE recouping some of its earlier losses, now only down 0.3%. Oil extending losses as weak demand and rising US inventories countered supply risk from Middle East conflict and hurricane Milton in the US. We see Brent crude is down 2.4% at $75 a barrel. And ahead of the US inflation data, the yellow metal fell for a 6th day in a row, is down 0.5% at 2,608. And then the rand continued to struggle, trading at 1765 against the US dollar, 2308 against the pound, and 1933 against the euro.
Okay, perfect. That's it. And we'll have further chats tomorrow and the next day and the next day. So good chatting to you once again, Makwe. Thank you for that. Right. Okay, we're going to get to your calls right after this.
X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
So you've been listening all day, certainly on this show, The National Pulse. So what is it that's, certainly got your pulse rate working, as the DA has admitted, that their mayor is not the mayor of the city of Tshwane anymore. But what about you? You have your own thoughts, I'm sure. Temba in KZN, go ahead, hi.
Very good afternoon to you, and welcome back home.
Thank you, much appreciated, Temba. Right, your thoughts?
These people, the politician mafia, they think we don't use our heads nicely. They keep on saying that we force them to go to whatever, GNU, whatever. But anyway, let me just speak to Mr. Mashaba. Mr. Mashaba is playing a revenge to DA. Remember what happened? They used to be together, and they switched off. Now is fighting, and at the same time, the same gentleman, he says he won't work with the ANC because whatever he said. But what is happening now is still working with them.
Well, it clearly is, yeah.
It's punishing what we call it DA but at the same time, he's working with somebody. He mentioned to us that he won't work with them. The reason why people, they decided their way. And at the same time, remember that there are some other people, somewhere, somehow, who is controlling all of this organization. The reason why, because they want to, they give them money and divide them, so then they can rule.
And who's that somebody? Who's that somebody?
You know, you're a journalist, you know. There is some, don't laugh, you know those people. There are people stay somewhere here in South Africa, controlling ANC, controlling all of them. And then after that, these guys, they just bust. They just bust.
Okay,
them.
I want to be invited. I want to be invited, and you can come with to the end of the year Christmas party when they do finally have it. Okay, these people that you talk about, Temba. Thanks for that call.
Welcome back.
Much appreciated. Thank you so much. Yeah, good to be back. I'll tell you what. When you're away, clearly, if you're going to be going on a trip, you can't think about the work you do here because that would just be silly, isn't it? But as you get to the last few days, you then remember hey, this is important to you. This is the need to be able to connect with people and get a sense of the national pulse is such a privilege. And then in one day you come back and it's because I know when I came back yesterday, I could have said, maybe let me take 3 days off and I'll start on Monday. I'm no, I need to get in where the pulses are racing, and clearly it is a privilege. So I'm just making that point. Eric, you have a thought on medical aid. Go ahead, Eric.
Yes, Ashraf, good evening. Thank you for this show and thank you for picking my call.
Thank you.
Yeah, Ashraf, your station is one of the most popular radio programs that we listen to, and I think you are doing justice to the nation. Yes, on medical aid, Eric, I don't understand this, Ashraf. How can medical aid allocate just 300 rand for over-the-counter medication for a whole year? For a whole year, a client or a policy holder has only 300 rand to spend on his over-the-counter medication. But I had an experience where I just went to buy Strepsil, which cost 61 rand.
Oh my goodness.
And medical aid says they declined that 61 rand. Meanwhile, every month I contribute over 546 rand every month. That is my contribution. My employer also contribute 500 and something rand every month.
So you're contributing it's 1,000 rands a month.
A month.
But you see,
61 rand cannot be spent from medical aid.
But you see, different medical aids have different cover based upon what they charge. Now, my understanding is I'm not a broker, so I don't know, but my understanding is if you're paying 1,000 rands, just about, between you and your employer, that is relatively cheap. So the cheaper you pay, the less benefits you have. There are others who are paying up to 3,000-4,000 rands a person at a time. Some even up to 8,000 rands for one person at a time. I promise you that. It's crazy, right? Then they have far more benefits. Obviously, in an ideal world, you don't want to pay for medical aid. You don't want to have any health insurance. You want to be able to, as a citizen, have the type of medical treatment without doing that. And that's called the NHI, but that's another whole conversation, whether that works or not. But to answer your question now, that's all I can think about. Maybe what you need to do is speak to your broker or your company broker to say, explain this to me. How can it be that, I needed Strepsils, so my throat is sore, and now my throat is even more sore because I can't even get the Strepsils. True. Eric, thanks for that call. And thanks for the feedback as well on the show. Much appreciate you listening into the National Pulse. From Eric to Marvelous. You sound like a boxer. Remember Marvelous? Marvin, I think it was. Marvelous in Durban. Hi.
Yes, hi, Ashraf.
Yeah,
how are you?
You got like a boxer's name. You know that. You know what I'm talking about.
Okay, welcome back anyway.
Much appreciated. All right, go ahead. What's your point?
Yeah, my point is I want to talk about this Transnet having a new mayor. What I'm starting to notice is that these politicians actually, I've noticed this for a long time. Politicians don't care about us. They only care about feeding themselves. Because not so long ago, before the elections, every party was saying we won't work with the ANC because of 1, 2, 3, 4. Then boom, all of a sudden, they work together. So I don't know who said it's not a government of national unity, but it's a government of inconvenience. Because from the first place when the ANC started working with the DA, The DA's main purpose was to make sure that the MK party and the EFF don't have, they don't work with the ANC.
Well, I mean, I hear you, and I agree with everything you've said before. That, I've tweeted about it often to say, give me a practical example of a political party that practically manifests how they are absolutely putting the people at the very center of all the decision making, and I don't see that. So maybe your point, it's not so much a government of unity or a government of convenience or inconvenience. I think it's actually a government of convenience, meaning political parties, all the political parties, they are chummies with the enemies of yesterday because it's convenient to them today.
Yes,
that's really, and that goes across the board. It doesn't matter which party they're all into that same category. And if they disagree with me, they must prove me otherwise, or prove you otherwise as well. Yeah.
There's no permanent enemy in politics. That's what I've noticed.
Well, there we are. Marvelous. Thank you. It's certainly not a marvelous situation, but I certainly get that. Thank you for that. Greg Green saying, Ashraf, welcome back. Greeting you from Alberton City Mall. Lovely picture of the Alberton City Mall. I certainly got that. Thank you for that. And there's another, 2003, I was in Pretoria. The water tasted and smelled like your cool drinks taste like chemicals. And the 50-50 show, I think it is found that the sewage goes directly into our drinking water. Okay, that's another, right? Here's another one. Ashraf, your caller is joking. I pay 8,000 rands for 2 children, myself and my husband. It's Bongiwe in Joburg. You see, Bongiwe, you're saying what I know. That's how much it costs. Now, there are these absolute rock bottom price medical cover, but it means they give you far less than what you would do, Bongiwe, but you're paying far more. Now, ideally, you want to pay less and still get the same type of treatment, but, that's just not the case at this point in time. I want to check if there's another call. Maybe we'll check some calls. We'll take some calls. In fact, there's a couple of voice notes that I can pick up on right away, and a lot of it is about politics.
Ashraf, good afternoon. Important point made by one of our fellow listeners. I think you just read it now, that these political parties forget that the people who are voting for them are not politicians, right? Whenever I hear the ANC speak, it's always branches. I've never heard them speak even a single time about how they disappointed the actual voter. Branches. MK, I've never heard them say anything worthy. Nothing on politics, nothing on policies. They just squabble, forgets about the people who voted for them. So that's the problem with these guys.
Well, I mean, I think that is the absolute reality. We still don't get enough of that, do we?
Prophet Ashraf Lukman Cape Town. Ashraf, I've been called today all sort of names, ugly names, awful names for working with the ANC, but now he's working with the ANC. No, he's nothing like an opportunistic politician. To come to think, I was about to vote for him. I will never vote for that man. Never. And if he thinks the ANC is going to give him the leverage, if he thinks the ANC is going to give him the pie, he's mistaken. Thank you.
Okay, there you are. But I must tell you, it's not just Action SA and their leader, and the ANC and their leader, and the DA and their leader, and the MK party and their leader, and the EFF and their leader. I can't remember all the other parties now. Honestly, there's so much cross-pollination, if I can call it that, between the different political parties based upon parties of interest. That's why we made the point. It is a coalition of convenience. What's convenient to the parties at this point in time?
Cultural Urban Festival Africa will conclude the weekend in style with an exhilarating brand of football. The City of Roses will vibrate as Bakhabane Bantwa battles it out with Amakhosi. This is the inaugural Kufa Cup. Who will conquer the 90 minutes at the Toyota Stadium in Bloemfontein? Witness the incredible Kufa Cup clash between Maruma Gallants and Kaizer Chiefs this Sunday, 13 October at 2:30 p.m. live on SABC 1 and SABC radio stations. You can also catch it everywhere for everyone, always on SABC Plus and SABCsport.com. Tickets are available at Ticket Pro, Spar, BP, and Shell. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
The Stallions get it that the only way to remain on top of Group L is through a win. However, the Swallows refuse to be left behind. They target a second victory to move away from the third position. This is the Total Energies AFCON 2025 qualifier. Experience the journey to Morocco, Burkina Faso versus Burundi on Thursday, 10 October at 9 p.m. Live everywhere for everyone, always on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
You're listening to the National Pulse on SAFM. SAFM.
By the way, we'll be chatting to the ANC representative coming up after 5. So we've spoken to Action SA, we've got the DA spokesperson, and we'll get the ANC opinion on the changes that have taken place in the city of Tshwane. Now, while we talk about the city of Tshwane, what about the city of Cairo? And I'm trying to picture where you are, Kathy, because I was at that Cairo National Event Center about 11 months ago. A fabulous place it was, and I'm assuming you're at the same place. I don't know. So good chatting to us, Kathy Motlatlana.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Well, you see, you are much more well-traveled than I am. Yes, we are at the center of Cairo, where the 9th African Peer Review Mechanism meeting of credit experts on credit ratings is taking place. And what you really have is a gathering of experts from across the board, rating agencies, multilateral organizations, banks, development banks, academia, and of course the APRM itself, all of them deliberating on the launch and the formation of an Africa credit rating agency.
So one thing is deliberating. It's interesting you bring that up. Do they actually have the muscle to move away from deliberation and a proposal that gets passed and tabled to effective change?
Well, perhaps to contextualize it a bit better, Ashraf, this 9th meeting really is reflective of a journey that has unfolded over a span of just 7 years, when African countries actually gave the mandate for this to take place. And where we are now is that there has been a full endorsement from African Union member states about the formation of this organization. You have individuals at the APRM that have been working, not only researching, looking at feasibility studies, the business model, but also building a case for why Africa truly needs this. And right now, this is part of what I would say is the last leg of the process. They've set a target for next year, July, for the launch of this Africa Credit Ratings Agency. And this is really now a building on conversations in market and exposing the broader public to the groundwork that has taken place behind the scenes.
So who's driving this process? And I mean, it's an important one. I know you mentioned the African peer review mechanism, but are there specific people, groups, lobby groups within the peer review mechanism that's driving this process?
Well, they lead experts that have, of course, been assigned to this. The lead expert from the Africa Peer Review Mechanism that is driving this is Dr. Mishak Mutize. But this is really an initiative of the African Union. But what they are clear about is that they don't see this Africa Credit Rating Agency as being a body that exists within the AU itself. They want it to be set up to be independent, to have an independent voice, but to largely deal with concerns that they have around the big three ratings agencies, which are your Fitch, your S&P, and your Moody's. They believe that there has been an inconsistency in evaluation, and there not only is a perception, but looking at the research that has been presented here this week, there really is research that has given credibility to concerns that African countries appear to be judged a lot more harshly than others elsewhere in the world. African countries are paying at least 4 times more credit than others elsewhere in the world. And this really is affecting the developmental agenda and potential growth of the continent, because as long as creditors are as long as the continent and countries on the continent are having to pay a high premium for their credit, it means that you're always sort of having to balance making decisions around what you can invest in and how much you can actually take on as credit. And they believe that this is really not only an impediment to the growth of individual countries, but when you look at even something like Agenda 2063 for the continent as a whole, that some of those goals that have been set in there will remain just that if the continent is unable to get the capital backing that it needs to drive, in particular, the infrastructure aspirations it has.
Well, it's an interesting point you bring up, and I think you're right about the issues of the credit agencies having enormous power, as you know, because once they pronounce on countries, in this case South Africa or other African countries, everything else just follows suit in terms of the domino effect, right? But here's the thoughts to leave you with, right? So interesting, I mentioned I was in Cairo last year around November, and the Intra-Africa Free Trade Summit. So similar related issues to what you're talking about now. And one of the issues that came up is whatever Africa pushes, right, there would be pushback from those that have vested interests to ensure this does not continue. In the same way, if you think of a football team and a striker trying to score a goal, you're going to get the opposition defenders trying to prevent that. And I'm suggesting there would be pushback. Do you get that sense at all?
Absolutely. It's a view that has been expressed by the experts here, but one gets the sense that for them, if they are able to build into the institution mechanisms that can speak not only to its credibility but also to its independence. And this is largely going to be centered around who funds this organization, who are the shareholders of this organization. And I think that's why the conversation around independence has been so dominant here, because these are questions that they're well aware of, and they're also mindful of the fact that, you know, the work that this agency is going to do is going to be met with skepticism, particularly because they're deliberately wanting to provide an alternative voice when it comes to ratings globally. It's not necessarily to say that they want to compete with the big three, as it were, but they see the role of an Africa Credit Rating Agency as one that can not only provide an alternative voice, but also one that can help African countries when it comes to the formulation of economic data within those countries, but also promote what you're talking about, regional integration. So it's not necessarily a political response or solely a political response. But, you know, there's a broader ecosystem that can be developed that can feed off the action of developing this organization.
Well, thank you for that, Kathy Motlatlana. Your time is up for now, but it certainly is Africa's time with regards to the impact of that African peer review mechanism on the issue of credit rating. I think it's very important. Hopefully we'll have another chat with you while you're still in Cairo in Egypt. And now we know why Kathy's not hosting a show today. Thank you for your time. Much appreciated. Let's get the news now. Here's Greg. It's just gone 5 o'clock.
Thank you, Ashraf, and welcome back. In this news update, concern over Eskom's financial position and a call for stricter safety food measures. Good day to you. The chairperson of Parliament's Standing Committee on Public Accounts, Songezo Zibi's, argued that Eskom's financial position poses a threat to the future of the country. This after Eskom revealed that for many years they've spent over 100 billion rand each year to service their debt. Zibi addressed the Eskom board and executive team at Megawatt Park in Sunning Hill, north of Johannesburg.
There are two sources of borrowing in the main for Eskom and other financial institutions. It is the savings of workers and provident funds, the government employees pension fund, as well as the provident and other funds of South African workers that have worked for years with chapped hands so that they can have a decent retirement. And Eskom, Transnet, Sanral, and all of these institutions dip into those savings. It would be immoral for Eskom or any other institution to one day say we can't pay you back.
The Electoral Court has dismissed Jabulani Khumalo's application for leave to appeal. He sought to overturn an earlier judgment of the Electoral Court that dismissed his application against the IEC for his removal as the leader of the MK party. The court dismissed the application with costs. In June, Khumalo lost his bid to be reinstated as party leader. The specialist court cited that his application constitutes an abuse of the court's process and a waste of resources. The judgment has since been welcomed by the MK party. The Department of Water and Sanitation says it's detected the presence of cholera in the Vaal and Harts rivers in the northwest and northern Cape. The department has advised communities living along the rivers to be careful when using water from them. Department spokesperson Wisani Mabaz.
During the raw water routine sampling in September, water from 5 sites, which are Wetzel Dam, Schweizer-Reneke, Christiana, Buckley West, Caravan Park, and Douglas Weir, indicated the presence of cholera. Communities are advised not to drink or come into contact with the raw water from these rivers. A follow-up sampling on the rivers is in process and will indicate the extent and the area of caution. Communities under the Dr. Ruth Khomotse Mompati, Francis Bart, Pixley Kaseme, district municipalities and the water services authorities around the area have been requested to take extra care in the water treatment processes.
The ATM strongly condemned what it says is government's ongoing negligence in addressing the urgent need for stricter food safety measures to protect citizens from poisoned food sold in spaza shops. This after the deaths of 5 children in Soweto this week. It's alleged that the children ate snacks bought from a foreign-owned spaza shop over the weekend. Spokesperson for the ATM party is Zama Nshona.
The need for urgent intervention is very clear. This is why we are also moving forward. We are calling for a comprehensive strategy to combat the prevalence of poisonous foods in our communities, including harsh penalties for those who endanger public health by selling hazardous products. The ATM insists on accountability for government officials who fail to enforce food safety regulations. The loss of innocent lives due to negligence must not go unpunished.
The mayor of Serbia's capital, Belgrade, has called for a change to the city's red buses, saying red is the colour of socialism. Alexander Sapic wants the buses painted in blue in reference to the royal family which ruled Serbia in the 14th century. The BBC's Gordon Loney reports.
That's despite a previous public vote for city transport vehicles to be red. An extensive repainting programme followed, but Belgrade's mayor demanded another respray. Critics have questioned the cost and accused Mr. Šapić of trying to erase national heritage. The mayor also wants to move the remains of the former Yugoslav leader Tito to his Croatian birthplace.
The top story, the chairperson of Parliament's Standing Committee on Public Accounts has argued that Eskom's financial position poses a threat to the future of the country. That's SAFM News. I'm Greg Close.
In sports this hour, Proteas women beat Scotland by 80 runs in the T20 Women's World Cup and fritzed through to the quarterfinals of the Shanghai Masters. More details at 5:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
You might want to avoid the R21 today, leaving Joburg's airport area or getting away from Kenton Park on the run home towards Tembisa or Pretoria. There's a major backlog. There's roadworks at the Benoni exit, blocking a couple of lanes. There's a stationary truck in the mix there at Atlas Road, and it's a queue that starts right back on the R24 at Barbara Road. So from that point, you've got to go past the airport, up through Fort Trekker, through Atlas, through Pomona, and around towards that Benoni exit before you're out of it. Look at some side roads or alternatives locally to beat that. Otherwise, pretty heavy afternoon in Joburg's traffic. The N3 backs from Buccleuch all the way down to Germiston. The Mike 1 from Sandton down to Boysons is heavy. Northbound from Parktown up to Buccleuch, and then all the way through to Samran is very heavy. There's been some rain activity across the Gauteng, and the highway is extremely busy today. Crossing to Durban, the M7 remains a problem. If you're leaving Rossborough or coming away from the Bluff, there's a really big backlog of traffic up the hill to the Belleville Road exit out in the Queensborough area. Crash at Kia Ridge on your way to Pietermaritzburg, still causing delays. Backlogs there almost back as far as the Shongweni exit. And Cape Town today, Marine Drive now pretty heavy from the N1 highway out to Lagoon Beach and the Parton Island area. Then you pick up a secondary queue from Milnerton High School all the way through to Dolphin Beach, and the M5 is heavy traffic queuing Black River Parkway all the way down to the Racecourse Road exit in Kenilworth. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Stay safe on the roads. SAFM is with you.
Catch the Tastemaster Junior this Tuesday evening at 7 on SABC2. With only 5 contestants left in the competition, the heat is on. This week, they must prepare a family feast with the help of a sous chef who also happens to be their parent. It's a big challenge, but the reward is even bigger. That's the Tastemaster Junior this Tuesday evening at 7. Repeat Wednesdays at 1 and Sundays at 4 p.m. Only on SABC2.
The Leopards and Taifa Stars have a big battle in the top of the table clash. DRC is only interested in 3 points to maintain their winning rhythm, while the East Africans also want victory to sustain their unbeaten run in Group H. This is the Total Energies AFCON 2025 qualifier. Experience the journey to Morocco, DR Congo versus Tanzania on Thursday 10 October at 6 p.m. Live everywhere for everyone, always on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
So I'm back after being 3 weeks and a bit away. It's amazing how long that is, but on the other hand, how quickly time flies. And there you are back in South Africa, having been to Montreal, Toronto, and London. I'll tell you what, over the period, not today, but over a period, if I can, I'll share some insights about some of those cities, besides the work that I did there, right? Just some of the cities that I think you'd love to know about. And, again, we can connect and bring that back to South Africa and see how, what are we doing regarding those issues, or what we're getting right regarding those issues. Now, we should be chatting to the ANC's Tshwane Regional Secretary, George Machila, pretty shortly regarding the fact that we have a new mayor in that city. Just battling to connect with George in just, but hopefully we'll do that in a moment or so. I will tell you this much. Let me play some of the voice notes. We've had so many people commenting on, GNU and coalition once again. And when you have a new mayor and the existing one gets deposed, then it's understandable you're going to get this sort of reaction.
Afternoon, Ashraf, it's Mike in Durban. Yeah, I mean, this ANC, DA, IFP, Freedom Front Plus, Mambo Jumbo coalition, it's always a joke. It's a joke, actually. But look, Ashraf, it will never collapse. The DA has been after positions for the longest of times. They've tasted these blue lights in the Western Cape. They want the blue lights. They were never going to bail out of this coalition. They've got 2-3 minister position posts and a whole lot of deputy ministers, with this bloated cabinet. They're never going to bail out of this coalition because they want the perks. So it's going to be a non-functional coalition for the longest of time. It's very useless, just that it serves no purpose for South Africans.
Well, I don't know if it serves no purpose. Many are saying, in fact, the current coalition, no matter how faulty it looks like in terms of service delivery, is working. Now, just let me separate the two so you know what I'm talking about. Philosophically, you may be spot on. Many people agree with you. But there's another thought that to say, in terms of actual service delivery, things are working with Home Affairs, and there's massive backlog that's been sorted out in a very, very short period of time with what we've seen with the Minister of Sports, Arts and Culture, and there's some important question marks being raised in education. All those ministers come from political parties that would not be there if there was no government of national unity. On the other hand, I also hear what you're saying, that this unity is there. There's lots of outbursts of we unhappy with you. But I have a sense that, particularly with regard to the ANC and the DA, if either one of the two pull out of a GNU, then what for them? I'm talking about those two in particular. If they pull out, what happens to them? And therefore, I can't see them pulling out right now. They would lose a lot of their leverage if they just did that. Well, that's my thoughts. Let's get the views of George Machila, who's the ANC Tshwane Regional Secretary. Appreciate you giving us your time. Thanks for joining us on the National Pulse.
Thank you, Ashraf, and your listeners.
Thank you. Right, now to just put into context, we had a chat earlier on with Herman Mashaba, from Action SA, because we now have a new mayor in the City of Tshwane region. That's Dr. Nasipi Moya. We then also got a reaction from the DA as well, giving their thoughts. Of course, they understandably, in terms of them, are like, what happened to us now? And they are saying that they've been questioning some of the thoughts in terms of where they're going to go with regard to any collaboration in the City of Tshwane and via national with regards to potential agreements or disagreements. And I'm talking about the conversation I had with Gwena Moloto. Now, both of those conversations we'll have in fact, we've got it up as a podcast already, so please listen out to that. But let's get back then to you, George Machila from the ANC. So, how significant a day is this? Because a lot has happened in the last month where a mayor who seemed pretty safe and entrenched in his position is not there, primarily because the mayor is a DA mayor.
Well, thank you very much, Ashraf. The most critical thing that we are looking at as the ANC is stability. Because out of stability, we think we can be able to stabilize the city itself. And when the city is stabilized in terms of finances and services, we can be able to go and do the necessary work within communities. Because for the last 8 years, our communities, more particularly in townships, they've been complaining. It's not something political, or it's not something that is pronounced by ourselves as the African National Congress, but it's a matter which is raised on daily basis by members of the community to say, for the longest period of time, they've not been receiving necessary services. When we speak about the collection of waste issues, like your street lights that are not maintained, you find that the townships are dark at night, it's very risky and so forth. And there are also challenges of parks that are not maintained. They are extremely dirty and very risky for kids and young people to play on.
Okay, but can I just interject you, because I want to move on. I mean, I hear all that you're saying, and I think there's two fundamental issues here that need answering. Are you saying that the former mayor was removed primarily because of all the things you've mentioned? That means failure to service deliver. And if that is the case, right, why are you convinced that the new mayor will do so? And the third point, all linked to that, is that there are many, many examples in the country of ANC-led government and ANC-led local municipalities where there has been no service delivery or there's been service failure, even with your own leaders in position. So why would this be any different then?
Well, I will focus mainly in the city of Tshwane because that's where I have the mandate to speak for on. Mm-hmm. We have a risk plan, and we know what the challenges are, and we can't be afraid to take action on the basis that we are not sure as to what will happen. We will obviously establish a team of capable men and women who will ensure that they do the necessary work. I mean, if you would have captured what I'm saying correctly, it's not like services were not done completely, but services were done in a very skewed manner. Skewed manner meaning in the suburbs. If you go, for instance, to Wonderboom or Pretoria North, you will find that the area itself is clean and well looked after. But if you go to Mamelodi, Hammanskraal, Winterveld, and other related areas, the townships, you will find that there are serious issues of
okay.
Of
so I understand. So what you're saying, your primary reason, are you standing with that? The primary reason that we don't have Salias Brink as the mayor of Tshwane is because of a failure of service delivery. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, fine. How confident are you in the current formation? We have a new mayor, a very much ANC-supported mayor, but a mayor of a different party that were once very, very good chummies with the DA.
Well, look, she's the mayor, but she's not going to work alone. There's going to be a team of capable people coming from all parties that we work with, mainly from the ANC. We have identified the people who are going to form part of the mayoral committee, who we think they will assist in ensuring that the services are provided, more particularly in the townships where there were no services at all before for the longest period of time. Okay, now here's the point, right? If I look at the city of Johannesburg, right, that city also had different formations at different times, especially with regard to coalitions. And in its last iteration, you had the mayor that came from the Al Jamaa party, very much a minority party that was essentially propped up by the ANC and the EFF. And many people who live in that city would argue that the city was run very, very poorly in the last year or so, and that a city with an absolutely small party political leadership that actually becomes the mayor is unworkable. Aren't we seeing the same thing here in the city of Tshwane? No, I think it will be extremely unfair to want to make a comparison between Dr. Nasipi and Kwamanda. And as I've indicated earlier, that I would prefer to speak for Tshwane, but I can tell you, we look at the work that the incumbent has done before, the experience, the qualifications, and we are quite convinced that she can be able to meet the necessary demands in terms of what our communities need. Okay, I think that's understandable, and the focus is on between Tshwane and Joburg is really to give the reference point of understanding, right? And this one you can answer. How confident are you, therefore, that although you will have an Action SA leader, ultimately that person is being propped up by the ANC, as was Al Jamaa in the city of Joburg? And that's the point I want to bring up to you. No. What I've said is, we are speaking of a team. The mayor might be coming from Action SA, but she's not going to do all the work alone. She's going to do the work with a team of capable men and women who are going to assist in that regard. So I'm very confident because of the team that we are going to constitute around her. Okay. Today, the mayor spoke about, less politics, more service delivery. Do I take it that all the parties that form part of this coalition formation buys into that? Come again? The new mayor spoke about less politics, more service delivery. Do I take it that the various political parties that make up this new formation in the city of Tshwane will buy into that? That means it's not political, it has to be more service delivery. No, that's for sure. All of us, as we were assembling different parties, the main objective was to ensure that we turn around the seat, to ensure that we ensure that the services are done unlike before. So all of the team that are there, the political parties that are there, they have signed a pact that seeks to ensure that all of us are going to commit ourselves in ensuring that the main thing that we deal with is the provision of services and nothing else. Okay, here's the last thing, in a quick soundbite. Do you not agree that although the mayor said it has to be less political, more service delivery, that the entire change that has taken place is actually political? No, it's not political. It's only you who's talking about politics. We have different issues that have triggered a decision that we have taken in ensuring that we remove Phileas Brink and we put up a team that we are talking about. So there's nothing political there. Okay. It is mainly about service delivery. Let's leave it at that. No less political, more service delivery. George Machila agrees with that. The ANC Tshwane Regional Secretary. We'll have more comment, certainly from you, on the fact that we have a new mayor in that region right after this.
Muvhango returns for an explosive new season on SABC2. A renaissance of new beginnings, intrigue, and drama with old enemies and new characters. Catch the rebirth season of Muvhango every Monday to Friday at 9 p.m. on SABC2 or stream it on SABC Plus. Mubango ukhovela phanda. SABC2.
Great things can happen when you play Lotto for a life-changing 70 million rand estimated jackpot this Wednesday. That's right. Play Lotto for an estimated 70 million rand jackpot today, and luck could be on your side. Buy your tickets now in store on nationallottery.co.za, the mobile app, cell phone banking, or simply dial *120 *7529# for USSD. Panda, Pusha, play. Players must be 18 years old or play responsibly. E2 is the proud operator of the National Lottery. The Stallions get it that the only way to remain on top of Group L is through a win. However, the Swallows refuse to be left behind. They target a second victory to move away from the third position. This is the Total Energies AFCON 2025 qualifier. Experience the journey to Morocco, Burkina Faso versus Burundi on Thursday, 10 October at 9 p.m. Live everywhere for everyone, always on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
You're listening to the National Pulse on SAFM. SAFM.
Right, let's get further comments from you.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. I just don't understand why is it that every time Herman Mashaba comes in studio, he's being reminded that he said he will never work with the ANC. The very same DA said so many bad things about the ANC. They've called them names, but every time they come on studio, they are not reminded about what they've said in the past. Why is it that it's only Herman? I mean, the very same questions that are directed with Herman are the same questions that I think should be directed with DA. But DA, they are allowed to flip-flop, but not others. Why is it? Thanks. This is Luzuko.
Luzuko, thanks. I tell you what, I don't agree with you. I think it's been asked of everybody. Perhaps he because he said, I will never, work with the ANC. That's why when he said, they're a corrupt party, I will not do that. And he's working with them. It's that sort of thing. But I think people have asked about the DA as we've asked even just about every day of the week. Somebody does ask those questions, I can tell you.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Ashraf, welcome back home. Ashraf, I just want to know, what qualifications does Gwede Mantashe have that cannot be replaced? So if Gwede Mantashe dies, what are we going to do? Because we don't have a qualification, somebody who's qualified who can replace Gwede Mantashe. What qualifications does Gwede Mantashe really have? That is my question. Norman from Brixton.
Oh, no, but I don't know how to answer that question. I mean, you probably need to ask the ANC how important is Gwede Mantashe to carrying out an ANC mandate. But you've already made the point that what's going to happen to him? What's going to happen to us when he dies? Don't let me answer that question. But thanks for raising it anyway. Let's talking about Gwede Mantashe, you may be aware of this. Of course, he's the Minister of Petroleum and Mineral and Petroleum Resources, right? He said that petrol and diesel should cost 14 Rand per litre and that his department is in discussions with the National Treasury to decrease fuel prices. So he made this comment during the 2024 Africa Oil Week. Let's find out what the response of the AA is. Their spokesperson is Leighton Beard. Leighton, good chatting to you. Hi.
Hi, Ashraf. Good to be with you. Thank you.
What do you make of that statement by Gwede Mantashe?
Look, I mean, I think, 14 Rand a litre for petrol is obviously something we would be incredibly happy with. I mean, and we'd welcome that. But I think the question really is how do we get to 14 Rand a litre from the current 21 Rand? There's been discussions around fuel pricing for many, many years, and many governments have come, with suggestions and said we need to reduce it. Well, actually not suggestions, but comments around, we need to reduce fuel pricing, we need to look at the fuel pricing structure, but there's really nothing, solid that's come out of that. When the minister made these statements yesterday, we looked for some detail in terms of what exactly was it that was the basis of discussions between the DMPR and Treasury, and there weren't any specifics. There are no details, and the detail, the devil really is in the detail. I think what he alluded to was the scrapping of the levies. Now, 6 Rand 20 a litre goes towards taxes on the two big levies, the General Fuel Levy and the Road Accident Fund Levy. Now, it's all very well and good to say, well, let's scrap those levies. The big question then remains is, well, where do you generate that 150 billion rand that those levies generate annually? And that could lead to some serious other taxes being introduced or existing taxes being increased. VAT springs to mind, so, where is the payoff? And I would suggest to you that in those discussions, Treasury would be asking the Department of Mineral and Petroleum Resources, well, if we scrap the levies, what do you suggest we do to get that money back?
So with that in mind, I mean, I'm sure you'd love to have levies or petrol prices at a lower price. I mean, we all do, absolutely, right? Do you then suggest that because it's so obvious that taking away a big chunk of revenue can only mean that revenue has to be found elsewhere, that this from Gwede Mantashe is nothing more than mischief making? That means saying something that cannot be followed through on.
Well, I'm not going to label it mischief-making. I think, we'd like to see exactly what his proposal is before we go down that route. The bottom line is that the General Fuel Levy is one of the biggest taxes government collects. It's one of the top 4 taxes government collects. It's an easy tax to collect. It generates 100 billion to the Treasury fiscus every year. And if you were to do away with it, you need to have some solution in place as to how you're going to replace it. And I've alluded to, increasing VAT. There could be something on the table saying, well, let's increase corporate taxes or pay as you earn. Which is just, not going to be sustainable for the vast majority of South Africans. So, what we have said in the past is let's look at the entire fuel structure and let's see whether all the elements on that current structure are A, calculated correctly, and B, still necessary on that structure, and whether there's any wiggle room within those calculations to actually reduce the fuel price over a longer, more sustainable period. But simply taking the taxes away, I think at this stage for us raises some very serious questions about where that funding is going to come from. And let's make no mistake, Ashraf, government sorely needs that funding.
I think we concur. Which then brings me on to the last point, right? What's your thoughts generally regarding the price of petrol or fuel that we pay in our country, and how much of that is being factored in only because of our weakened rand? And I coming back from London right now, 23 rands to the pound, which is actually an improvement on 25 rand a few months ago.
Yeah. Look, I mean, at its current rate of around 21, 22 rand a litre, South Africa's fuel is pretty much in the middle band in terms of what it costs internationally. In some countries in Europe, you look at places like Greece, they're paying 50 rand a litre, somewhere in that region. In places in the Middle East, they're paying 3 rand a litre. And when you look at the pricing of a litre of fuel across the world, South Africa really sits in that middle band. We're not the most expensive, we're certainly not the cheapest, but we're pretty much in the middle. If you were to take those two big taxes off, we'd start to slip back into the lower pricing category. Our neighbouring countries, for instance, Namibia, Botswana, they pay less for their fuel, even though they get it from South Africa because they don't have those taxes. But the question again is, you do away with those taxes, which I think government has become very comfortable with over the last period, because of the money that's generated from there. But you've got to ask yourself the question: where is the payoff? We've always maintained as the AA, people would be happier to pay those taxes if they actually saw bang for buck. If we could, if we saw potholes being repaired and street lights working and infrastructure that was being repaired and, maintenance being done and things being built, and, people would have less resistance to that. But unfortunately, issues of graft and corruption have crept into that, and they raise serious questions about government spending. And, this is one of those questions that people ask all the time.
Let's leave it at that. Thanks for that, I think, rather enlightening discussion. Lots to come out of that, I'm sure of it, no question about that. But perhaps here's the thing. Maybe the move is to have a ring-fenced, expense that's ring-fenced to one cost center only. But I'm not talking about toll gates, not at all. But certainly on that part where people can understand exactly where their money is going to. Leighton Beer, the AA spokesperson, thank you for your time. Let's get the news headlines now. Here's Greg Hose.
Quick look at the headlines. Regional Corporation has the potential to enhance investment from funders when it comes to infrastructure development for energy systems. The chairperson of Parliament's Standing Committee on Public Accounts has argued that Eskom's financial position poses a threat to the future of the country. And as the storm continues its journey towards the U.S. state of Florida, millions of people have been rushing to leave their homes. More on that story and other news at the top of the hour.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
It's a very heavy afternoon right across the Johannesburg region. It all started with a big thunderstorm earlier. It's left wet and slippery roads and just heavy backlogs, all of it. All of the highways really under pressure today. Perhaps one of the very heavy ones is the run out on the R24 onto the R21. So you queue from sort of Barbara Road territory on the R24 onto the R21 at the airport and all the way past the stationary truck at Atlas Road, and the lane closes up at the Benoni off-ramp. If you're leaving Kempton Park or the airport, try and hit some local alternatives. You come back on at the R25, Bobsfontein Road. That'll work quite nicely to just sort of bypass the R21 North. It is heavy. The Mike 1 from Halton all the way through to Samrad Road's pretty jam-packed on the Mike 1 N1 option. The Pretoria Main Road, Old Joburg Road, very heavy from Midrand on your way through to Century in the south. There's a really big bottleneck of traffic moving that way. Durban, here's a very unusual queue as well for motorists that come out of the Bluff or leave the Rossborough area out to Queensborough and Pinetown. The M7 is literally standing from South Coast Road, Chitron Road territory in Rossborough all the way through up the hill to the Belleville Road exit in the Queensborough area. That's a really significant delay. Key Ridge busy improving after a crash and a stationary truck both being cleared. Cape Town today, the M5 running north is a little bit different as well. There's queues up the Black River Parkway and then through Coburg, interchange up through Brooklyn on your way towards Milnerton. That's a very unusual queue. And the N7, Jake Schervell sitting from the N1 highway all the way down to Voortrekker Road. Very slow through Goodwood. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Kapele.
All right, our Minister of Sport, let's talk cricket. And you're wearing a cricket top. Is it a cricket top?
It is a cricket top. Let's not say
Please
which
take a picture.
side.
Oh, okay. Which side? No, don't take a picture if that's the case. But people can watch you on streaming live, you know that. But go ahead.
Absolutely. Well, Proteas women beat Scotland by 80 runs in their third fixture of the ICC Women's T20 World Cup. South Africa had won the toss and they had elected to bat first. They set a T20 World Cup record with the highest score of this year's tournament so far, 166 for 5 in their 20 overs. Tasman Brits and Marizanne Cup top scored with 43 of 35 and 43 of 24 balls respectively. In reply, Scotland were bowled down for 86 with Nonkululeko Mlaba taking 3 wickets for 12. Here's Marizanne after the match.
But we knew we had to be at our best. I think that has been the message throughout this tournament, is that power play to try and be a bit more attacking. And today, I think our openers started us off brilliantly.
And currently on the go, it's India versus Sri Lanka. In football, the South African Football Association has announced a partnership with Southern Sun. As part of the partnership, Southern Sun will provide accommodation, conferencing and hospitality services for various SAFA-related activities. And this includes Bafana Bafana's participation in major tournaments like the Africa Cup of Nations qualifiers and the FIFA World Cup. And also Southern Sun say they will play a key role in supporting the women's national team, Banyana, as they continue their history on the global stage. Then Stellenbosch FC goalkeeper Sage Stevens says that there's no time to throw a pity party following their defeat to Orlando Pirates in the MTN 8, with the next assignment to defend the Carling Black Label knockout. Now, the draw was conducted yesterday and Stellies will face Amazulu, who have just appointed Athazwane and Vusimusi Vilagazi as co-coaches away in the opening round of the Cup. And Stevens says that they need to immediately move on.
No, I think it definitely helps. But like you said, the nice thing is that it shows that we're competing. To come off the back of a cup final, come to the launch today and know your opponent, and being the defending champions, it's special. It shows that Stellenbosch is competing like we want to, like we aim to. And it just it makes us feel very proud and humble at the same time.
Meanwhile, former Liverpool manager Jurgen Klopp has a new role. He's been appointed as the head of football operations at Red Bull, which owns Leipzig, Salzburg and New York clubs. The 57-year-old's new job with Austrian energy drinks giants does not involve hands-on coaching, though. He will focus on supporting individual sporting directors alongside global scouting and the development of coaches. In the meantime, in rugby, Springbok women at WA WXV2 final match against Italy at Athlone Stadium in Cape Town on Saturday is all about finishing the season well and with their tails up. According to Heather Jacobs, one of the loose forwards in the squad, their growth has been measurable, and for the Bok women, nothing would be more satisfying than closing out a solid season with victory over Italy in their final test of the year. The Springbok women have beaten Japan and then lost to Australia, both with 7-point margins in their 2 WXV appearances so far. And Jacobs said that they are very determined to make sure that they finish strong. In tennis, Daniil Medvedev defeated Stefanos Tsitsipas in straight sets today to reach the quarterfinals of the Shanghai Open. The fifth seed won the match 7-6 and 6-3 to improve his 10-4 against the Greek, who had a major meltdown and refused to play after time violation. Medvedev will face Jannik Sinner tomorrow in a blockbuster quarterfinal. Meanwhile, Coco Gauff cruised into the last 16 at the WTA 1000 Wuhan Open today with the 6-1 and 6-2 win over Tomova. The 20-year-old just needed 76 minutes to get past the world number 48, despite dropping her serve in the opening game of the match. And now she will take on 13th seed Marta Kutsek next, and she holds a 2-1 career head-to-head record over the Ukrainian. That's it. It is a wrap from my side. Good to have you back, Ashraf.
Thank you. What is Marta's surname?
Kutsek.
You know when you speak fast, that rhymes it sounds like a South African word that I will not repeat. If you get my point, but you can work it out.
Don't do it.
I will not do it. Yeah. All right. Great to connect with you once again. Hopefully we have lots more chats over the next few days.
Alrighty.
Yeah,
Andile, the CEO of a multinational corporation, is driving home with his daughter.
Dad, why is the tooth fairy so stingy?
Stingy? Well, she makes sure everyone gets something.
Does everyone at your company get something?
Yes, they're covered by Old Mutual Corporate's employee benefits.
Even Abdul.
Of course, he gets retirement benefits.
And Sisampo on that big machine.
She gets group risk cover if that big machine hurts her.
Wow, that's amazing, Dad.
Visit oldmutual.co.za/employee benefits and go from questions to solutions for your employees with Old Mutual Corporate. Old Mutual Life Assurance Company SA Limited is a licensed FSP and life insurer. T's and C's apply.
CAF President Dr. Patrice Motsepe said, the exponential growth and global competitiveness of football in Africa has resulted in substantial interests from major African and international broadcasters in African football. SABC has been participating competitively in the CAF media rights bids. CAF welcomes them as partners, joining a number of CAF's media rights holders. We are committed to ensuring that CAF's competitions, including its broadcast products, are world-class.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Right, I haven't done this in a long time. Jimmy Moyaha, good chatting to you as you bring us the SAFM market update. So let's start with Google. There's problems there.
Welcome back, Ashraf. Lovely to have you back. Yes, we're going to be taking a look at the problems of Google. The US government looks to be putting forward a request for the courts to unbundle Google, to split Google's business, take out the Android part of the business and a couple of other divisions as well. They're citing that Google has effectively built an illegal monopoly because 90% of the search transactions or search results that come through in America come via Google. So someone's not happy about that, and Google has to answer for that. We're going to look into that, and we're going to understand what's happening there. Then we've got a conversation with an independent economist around the court interdict against Transnet. Obviously, they've been trying to privatize that Durban port for quite some time. They've had that preferred bidder in place since last year, and that continues to be a delay at the moment. The court interdict now prevents them from moving ahead with that, as one of the bidders that had lost out now gets to have their side of the case heard properly. Then we've got a conversation with the guys at Nielsen IQ around consumer sentiment as well as consumer expenses, or consumer outlook rather, going into 2025. We're going to look at a report that Nielsen IQ put together around what consumers are feeling like and how they're seeing the markets, or seeing investments and seeing their pockets in particular. And we're going to look at that from that perspective. And then, because it's Wednesday, we've got an executive lounge feature on a Wednesday. We're going to be chatting to the founder of a company called MyGlass around what it is that they do and where the business originated from. Before we get to that, the markets have had a crazy day. It's been a very up and down kind of conversation depending on what time of the day you looked at the markets. If we start with Asian markets, they were all a bit of a mixed bag. Shanghai was down about 6.6%. Hong Kong was down almost 2%. Sydney was up 0.1%, and the Nikkei in Tokyo was up 0.9%. European markets were all in the green, with the FTSE up 0.4%, the DAX up 0.75%, and the CAC 40 up about 0.4% as well. US markets at the moment are in the green, 1/3% in each case, in the case of the Nasdaq and the S&P 500. If we look at South African markets, they were the most confused today. At some point, the markets were down north of 1%. They finished the day 0.1% in the red. So basically clawing back all of those losses from early morning. This happened sort of around the first hour of morning trade, and it took the whole day to kind of recover all of those movements. So markets really up and down, trying to digest what's happening. A quick look at some currency movements. The rand, 17.62 against the dollar. 23 rand 5 cents is what one British pound will cost you. 1 euro, 19 rand and 30 cents. 1 Australian dollar, 11 rand and 85 cents. Anyone looking at commodities prices would be happy to know that the gold price has not moved since yesterday. This time yesterday, that is. It's at $2,615, but if you've been watching it throughout the day, it definitely did move. Brent crude, $75.81 a barrel, and platinum and palladium pricing also not really too impressive at this point. Palladium is up though. That's at $1,046 an ounce, while platinum is at $962 an ounce there. Anyone looking at Bitcoin? The price of Bitcoin is $62,252 a coin, and that's a little over $1,113,000 rand. So 1.1 million rand for a Bitcoin, and that's where we're going to leave it. We're going to be back a little later on with more of these news. For now, Ashraf, back to you.
Well, I'll tell you what, before I let you go, when we have time, we need to talk about how do you travel at 14 rands to the Canadian dollar, at just about 18 rands to the US dollar, and at 23 rands to the British pound. But don't answer that for now. We need to reflect on that one. You want to touch on something more important, I suppose, insolvency versus liquidation. Tell me about it.
In our masterclass, we try to unpack these things. Yesterday we spoke about the technical insolvency that faced the likes of MultiChoice and Cell C, as well as the Post Office, very well-known stories that have been covered in the media. And essentially, insolvency is when the company's assets are insufficient to meet its liabilities, and therefore its insolvency ratio goes into a negative, and the business needs to make adjustments. Now, in South Africa and in other parts of the world, insolvency is treated differently depending on which part of the world you're in. But in South Africa, the process that's then followed is, if a company is seen to be insolvent and they're unable to rectify the situation, they then go into what's known as business rescue in an effort to try and get things back on track. If that fails, then we start dealing with conversations around liquidation, where we have to sell up the assets to pay off whatever creditors that we can pay. Obviously, in that situation, creditors might not get the full value of what their debt is worth, but ideally you want to get the business fixed at the insolvency stage before you get to the liquidation stage.
Okay, now we know, and we'll talk about currencies some other time. Much appreciated. Jimmy, enjoy your show from 6 to 7 o'clock, which comes up imminently.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
All right, let's get to some of your thoughts, and predictably, and every day we ask this question in advance, like, what do you think would be, the big issue that moves the National Pulse? And today it's got to be GNU Coalition, service delivery, and the ANC and the DA and Action SA, and that's completely linked to the fact that we have a new mayor in the city of Tshwane, right?
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Listening to this gentleman of the ANC speaking to you now. I really don't think he can't answer your questions. To me, it's once again of a mayor from a minority party being the puppet of the ANC. And the minute things turn sour, you're going to have another a game of musical chairs. Imagine if the president of the country in GNU would have been a 1-seat or a 2-seat in Parliament party. What would have happened? So to me, it's a question of musical chairs. And what I've picked up, the gentleman cannot answer your questions. And thank you so much for being back on the air.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the thank you. We're like patting each other on the back. Thank you. Much appreciated. Well, I mean, I do agree with you. I think I don't have to add much more than that it was rather vague in saying I can't really talk about Joburg when the relationship and the connection is very, very similar, I would think.
Afternoon, Ashraf, here as of the station. You see now, Ashraf, day by day, we hear people complaining that why the opposition parties are working with the ANC because before the election they said they won't work with the... Now tell me, who they must work with now? They don't like to work with ANC, but they are compelled by the situation. We all know that 5 provinces boosted the ANC to be where it is. Now you can't avoid it. How can we talk one thing day? Tusi from Inanda, bye.
Okay, there we are. But again, there's huge concerns about it. Let's get further thoughts from, also want to talk about that city. That's Alfred in Mpumalanga. Hi, Alfred.
Ashraf, how's it?
I'm good indeed. How are you?
I'm fine, Ashraf. Ashraf, when we go into politics as leaders, we are saying we are taking that direction because we are driven by the interest of the poor masses. But then along the way, contrary to that, different something altogether take place. Now, all what I'm trying to say, Ashraf, you see, the ANC will manipulate all these political organizations that are not having a clear agenda, that are superseded by the selfishness interest, Ashraf. Ashraf, in politics, we put the interest of the poor masses and those of the organization. Then that could be the narrow and the selfishness of us as individuals. You see?
Yeah.
But that thing doesn't happen. That thing doesn't happen in.
All right. Well, thank you for that. I mean, I think here's the point, and I think we've all said it in different ways at different times, right? No, I don't agree that the political parties don't have a clear agenda. I think they do have a clear agenda, and the agenda is to survive. Survival. Once a political party gets into power or to a position of influence, one of their primary objectives is to retain the influence and grow that influence. That's their agenda. Now, sometimes they do it with other parties. That's called coalition. Sometimes they do it on their own. But at all times, all of them, without exception, have to stay in power of influence, and therefore survival is a big part of their very clear agenda. Right, let's get another. Thanks for that call, Alfred. There's another one on the GNU.
Good afternoon, Mr. Ashraf. You're speaking to specifically in Zwane here in Tannhauser, KwaZulu-Natal. Mr. Ashraf, the only people who are against the GNU is those people who are MK members and EFF members. Those parties actually who are not in the GNU, those ones are against the GNU. The GNU is doing wonders. We have seen a positive attitude when it comes to the police. We've seen improvement in ESCOM. Yes, Mr. Ramaphosa started it first, but the continuity, yeah, we are seeing that we will no longer have load shedding. I think GNU is going to last for 5 years. Thank you.
Africa from within.
follows the journey of our anchor presenters who travel to various locations in order to delve into the inner workings and untold stories of the unsung heroes. At its core, Africa from Within is all about grassroots storytelling and the showcasing of the conservation contributions of ordinary people to Africa. It aims to engage and entertain viewers, educate and promote conservation, and inspire viewers to value our natural heritage. Don't miss Africa from Within on SABC2 every Friday at 7 p.m.
The Stallions get it that the only way to remain on top of Group L is through a win. However, the Swallows refuse to be left behind. They target a second victory to move away from the third position. This is the Total Energies AFCON 2025 qualifier. Experience the journey to Morocco, Burkina Faso versus Burundi on Thursday, 10 October at 9 p.m. Live everywhere for everyone, always on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Right, as you know, every day when we end the show, we talk about people who are winning, doing the very best at whatever it is they do. So what a great privilege to chat today to Intombozuko Imzwana, the Deputy Principal for the Mandela School of Science and Technology in Mvezo Village in the Eastern Cape. Now, she was named the Best Teacher of the Year at the 2024 National Teaching Awards that took place in Boksburg a few days ago. So, Intombozuko, good chatting to you, and I'm sort of giving you a drum roll for this, man.
Oh, thank you very much.
Well done.
I'm here.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
What a great thrill.
Yeah, say it again.
I can say it again. What a great thrill. Fantastic. I mean, what does this mean to you? Clearly it means a lot.
Sure. Greetings to everyone. I'm so humbled by the honor, delighted that my long hard work of selflessness has not gone unnoticed. You know, retrospectively, it makes me to be overwhelmed with mixed emotions when I recall the plethora of challenges that I've sustained. So it's very huge. It's very huge. But over and above, I'm very happy.
Well, let's talk about.
Has mattered.
Well, now, and you know, it's recognized nationally, so we all know about it, and that allows you, and I use the word influence a lot, that allows you then to use this influence to hopefully do even more, right? So maybe take us back to what is it that you do and what is it that you've done that so alerted the judges for the Best Teacher of the Year awards.
I can say, Albert Einstein believes that everybody is a genius, and I also believe that all teachers are the best. I'm just a yardstick to measure the dedicated collective. Perhaps the difference is that added effort, that going of extra mile, that endurance of leaving your house for 5 years, giving up the city life since 2020 to date, that risk of leaving your 10-year-old daughter to be raised by the hostel for the benefit of the rural children or the Mvezo children, that bravery of holding the school for 3 years, acting as the principal, the deputy principal, the subject teacher, managing a big band of Nelson Mandela, striving towards excellence, understanding what it means, doing placement programs for the children, running projects for the enrichment of for quality teaching, and also making sure that the school is known globally. So that ability to balance all those areas humble me because it has been a hell lot of job. At the same time, there is an organization that you are supposed to lead, which is the school. You are supposed to adhere to the policies of the department. It's not your house. So the experience of having taught in primary school, intermediate phase, senior phase, had hunted to FET, that alone has just made me to be different because I know children holistically, but it has given me a platform to fully understand how the sector works.
Okay, how, it's interesting because, often when we talk about teaching, we talk about people who excel, teachers in, cities and suburbs, right? Yours is very much in a rural community, which I would think, and again, I'm making assumptions here, it's a lot harder, it's a lot more difficult because of the lack of resources. I mean, that would be the case in your case and the schools too, right?
Exactly. We may be such a big brand, but the reality is we are far from the city in a deep rural village where transport, for instance, is not there, where road is poor, where you are dealing with not just children or learners in class, but children who are supposed to come and rent in this village, stay in a Rondavelle, pay a rental. And if you are leading the school or you are teaching there, you are the mother, you are the teacher, you are the person who has to bring resources at the same time. So it's an added job that you are doing besides going to class. So if you are teaching there, you are not going to deal with your textbook, your ATP, your assessment. You are also looking after the children, literally.
Sorry. Tell me about your own journey. I mean, in terms of, you're talking about looking after the children, but you had your own journey in terms of somebody inspiring you at one stage, right? Who was that person?
Yeah, as a product of village education, I was inspired by my English teacher, who I believe is the one who opened doors for me. And he has made me to understand and to have that will to work very hard and embrace language, as difficult as it was in those days. Mr. Kauleza was my English teacher. But the most important person who has inspired me is Nelson Mandela himself. Over and above, my principal, Mr. Doni, the one who started this school, is the one who had handed me. I was teaching in a primary school. So it was through my learners who applied at Mandela that I was able to be discovered. So he inspired me because he just told me that the school brand, the excellence, the demands and everything. So I thought I was just doing good or working very hard to ensure that the standards of the school are not compromised, only to find that I was developing myself. So Mr. Doni, may his soul rest in peace, is the reason why I'm also here.
Well, I'll tell you what, now that you've got this national award, it's fantastic, right? How do you intend, leveraging off this? I mean, taking advantage of it for yourself, for the school that you're a part of, and also for the learners, because you have an audience now. You didn't have an audience last week, right?
Yes. Yes. You recall that I also won in 2016 for secondary teaching. I'm winning for the second time. There was a project, or there is a project that I was running. I've been assisting schools that are placed under Section 58B, where I would go and inject in languages, particularly in paper two. I'm also leading programs or enrichment programs where I make sure that children's competence is developed, because teaching language for compliance or for learners to pass or to have a level 5 in their statement of symbols is nothing in all areas if that child cannot express herself. So my passion in public speaking, presentation, preparing and shaping learners to be global citizens have made me to be that different. So I intend to continue with my project. I intend to continue with assisting schools. I intend to navigate my way so that I make an impact, maybe in another space where I'm going to reach out everybody, because when we're teaching in rural areas, we always believe that we don't have much. So if I have made it or I've done it, I think everybody can try. Because it is through these children that we are able to see and measure our impact in their lives. I'm very proud that all my public speakers, I think about 15 of them, are abroad.
Wow.
I've never been there, but they would say or echo it out to say, ma'am, it is because of the influence you made to us that we are able to stand the world.
Wow.
Some of them are in the Nelson Mandela Scholarship. Some of them are working in Singapore, in China. And when I trace them, all of them were public speakers.
Wow.
So the confidence that you can give to a rural child is very, very important.
I'd love to speak to you more. We don't have the time, but I can tell you well done to you, and yours is a good example of a champion building other champions. I mean, the public speakers is a good example of just that. So a privilege to chat to you after you're named the best teacher of the year at the 2024 National Teaching Awards. Love to chat to winners. And I tell you what, in Tombozuku, in Kizwana, you are absolutely, you're a winner and you're winning all the time. Thank you for your time. That's the show. That's the show today, day one of hosting the National Pulse. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. It just tells me, Ashraf, you need to be here tomorrow. And I will. I hope you're going to join us as well. Let's get the news now. Just gone 6 o'clock. Here's Greg Kroos.
Thanks again, Ashraf. In this news update, regional collaboration can boost infrastructure development.